The inception of divine power had altered the way of the world. With the advent of immense power, humans started to anticipate eternal life. But the basic rule resided. The most powerful remained the most sovereign. Lawlessness prevailed everywhere, so the people who cultivated their powers could live longer. The aggressors eagerly attacked the vulnerable communities. But a female guardian had been thrashing the invaders at the borders of such a community for a year. This time, she faced an outranking opponent. In a pitiful condition, she realized she couldn't hold his opponent's resistance because it was the king of the Black Mountains, a high-tier Grade 5 warrior, a humongous monster. At the same time, she was just a mid-tier Grade 5 thought of a skilled warrior named Danai of the East. The king wrangled Danai that he would make her a parable by destroying her existence. Saying that, he gushed at her, but someone lashed out at him, and Danai also disappeared. The king was clueless until he saw a boy carrying Danai in his arms. She was also insensitive to the boy who saved her. It turned out that the boy belonged to 0 tier and had a 0 grade. He introduced himself as Lee Yun-ki. The first thing he said was that from now onwards, he should experience the ordinary life of a commoner. Danai's mere desperation ascertained how on earth anyone could mess with the king with no equipment. The king warrior was also curious about his confidence. Lee Yun-ki further deduced that he forgot to practice any fighting skills against the king. Danai was shocked to see him sorting out his fighting skills right in front of the king. But as the king realized his Grade 1 warrior strength, he busted out laughing, which created a blare around him. He further swanked that he would ground Lee Yun-ki with a single slap, and that Lee had made a big mistake meddling in the king's affair. Now the king would undoubtedly flash death before Lee's eyes. Saying that, he rushed towards Lee Yun-ki with his deadly Grade 5 fighting skills, Blazing Death and Dark Claw. On the contrary, Lee was standing calm and relaxed. He drew out 3 skill cards and selected the weakest card of the Grade 1 fighting skill called Mini Lightning. The king immediately used his deadly Dark Blazing Death Claw to crush Lee Yun-ki. But Lee created a fusion of fighting skills and cast a 2-star Mini Lightning Flash. It made a robust boom by the lightning outburst, and the king couldn't resist this agonizing pain. Danai was also clueless about her identity of Lee as the whole place blew up, and her clothes were also torn apart from the shockwaves of Lee's little lightning skills. She believed that if she weren't behind Lee Yun-ki, his powers could also have rusted away her body. However, she thanked him for saving her life and inquired if he was a patron of the Eastern District. Lee Yun-ki found it challenging to act as a weakling, so he replied that all he wanted was to become a commoner and start afresh. That was his sole desire, but little did he anticipate the immense difficulty the king would pose. Dania was sure that she had just met the protagonist. Speaking of protagonist, check out this new animated series where you can be the protagonist in the world of Raid, Call of the Arbiter. The link is in the description. This awesome series can be watched for free in the game itself, with new episodes coming out every Thursday at 10 a.m. EST until July 20th. This series has already gained 12 million views and countless engaging comments in each episode that has already been released recently. You may also leave your valuable, unbiased feedback on the series, lore videos, and other behind-the-scenes content from YouTube. And if you are already familiar with Raid Shadow Legends, which you probably are if you are watching my manga recaps, then you can also expect to learn about the backstories of the champions of the game. Beware of getting into an emotional roller coaster while you get to know more about the lore of the Raid Shadow Legends. It continues to celebrate a bunch of Call of the Arbiter-related features, with new champions, more lore connected to the series, and a bunch of activities you can still take part in. Not to mention loyalty programs and the announcement of unique packages for new players via the link in the description. Everyone will also get the chance to get Artak, one of the 5 new characters from the show, as a playable legendary champion for free just by logging into Raid for 7 days from now to July 24th. And for those utterly new to Raid, use my link in the description or scan my QR code to get insane bonuses. We are talking about the champion, Drake, and other valuable things, nothing less. So just click on my link in the description and we may meet you on the battlefield. The story commenced with the establishment of the Wanwu Empire by the pure forces who had induced the worldwide war of martial artists in the era of Qi recovery. The Wanwu family has an unmatchable, powerful skill that is developed by the combination of 3 identical martial skills in their bodies. However, propelling such a skill could destroy large areas. Thus, the family members were bound to live within the empire, and only the prince needed to suppress his martial skills and lower his cultivation level until he reached adulthood. Now it's the Eastern Martial Arts Academy, where the princes of the Nine Wan Wu family avoided publicity and practiced skills in secret. But Li Yunqi joined the Xiuxiam Academy to do the same. Before that, Li planned to test all of the borrowed skills, though he believed them to be weak. But still, they had detrimental effects. A while later, he passed by a second-year student who was scolding a newbie. Li Yunqi asked if he knew the way of martial arts skills classes. The senior got pissed at his confidence as Li introduced himself and moved away, letting him continue bullying. The senior directed his friends to find out about Li Yunqi's class because he wanted to beat the crap out of him and give all the newcomers a lesson. The academy trained people to become skilled and relate highly skilled techniques like Qi and martial arts. So, the academy developed a free, weakest martial arts technique distribution system in which one could get 3 martial arts techniques for the newbies. Most of the artificial martial arts skills existed in the form of cards with 2-dimensional codes. In such a first-year class, Li Yunqi was sorting out a skill that could be used in a public space with less detrimental effects. But as the teacher left for the class, the bully senior entered and directed everyone to leave the class except Li Yunqi. He told Li that trying to act cool in front of him would be his worst nightmare. Li argued that he didn't pretend anything, but the senior transformed its body into an ape mountain monkey and compelled a mountain cannon that Li quickly blocked, but he got pushed behind. The bully bragged about his powers and that he could finish Li Yunqi's life just by using 1/10 of his powers. After that, Li pissed him off by saying that his level of abilities could have saved him from getting baffled away by Li Yunqi. The bully pounced upon him with his violent ape apex punch to kill a freshman trash-talking him. Li Yunqi again drew out his cards. While they were about to fight, one of the supporters of the senior felt sorry for Li and suggested that one must break through the walls and protect the newbie from him. The other supporter replied that even the first-level advanced martial artist could never break the strenuous barriers of the academy. But they got shocked to see their brother being dashed into the wall by Li Yunqi, and it broke away instantly. Li was thankful for sorting out a less lethal martial skill called the Divine First. The father of the bully, Director Shan, was mad to see his son beaten up mercilessly. He directed Teacher Zhang to bring Li to him as he wants vengeance on him. Teacher Zhang told the director that he would profoundly kill Li Yunqi if he trusted him. Li pondered the new rule in the new student transfer office that would expel students who failed to gain 4 martial arts skills in 3 days. However, this rule was falsely made by the teacher Zhang, who further detailed Li to visit the marked location on the map, where he would find a group of demon trees of the weak early stages of martial arts. Killing them would assist him in gaining new skills because the demon trees gave away their spiritual wisdom on death. As he left the office, Teacher Zhang also directed one big demon tree to kill the arriving guest. One guy advised Li Yunqi to prohibit visiting the outskirts as awakened creatures live there. But Li believed exactly what Teacher Zhang said, that they were weak to counter with. When Li entered the outskirts, he saw a little tree demon who said he would surely die today. Li got confused about what sort of martial arts skills this little demon could give him on bursting to death. Meanwhile, in the deep forest, a guy named Li Feilei of the advanced martial status was gashed while fighting with the tree demon king, who was responsible for the recent disappearance of the first-year students. The tree demon king was a smoker, and the flame of the smoke didn't even affect his body. Li Feilei tried a thunderbolt kick on the tree demon but got held up by his stems as the tree demon had control over the whole place. Being continuously beaten up by Big Vine, he totally tapped out. The tree demon told him that he had been gathering all the pathetic humans like him in his aura farm, where they would eventually die. After that, the little demon tree came running towards him for help, discerning that the guy following him had killed all the elite demons and gathered all the martial arts skills bursting out of them. Li Yunqi answered while chasing him that he lied. Only one demon busted a martial art, and now he wanted to demolish the little tree demon. So he used a unique technique of the twisted fibrous roots, and the stems grew out of the ground and chained the little tree demon. Li Feilei needed to be more knowledgeable about what was happening around him. The tree demon king held the little one in his hands with mere disparity because he let the pathetic human make a chase out of him. Thus, he tried to eat him alive, but Li Yunqi saved the little demon's life from him. Li Yunqi was quite surprised by the humongous size of the tree demon as it could provide him with valuable skills. The tree demon got vicious to crush him, but Li requested him to wait for 12 seconds as the internet says such attributes helped get a calm disposition. Li Feilei added that he must not trust the internet against dealing with such enemies. The tree demon king ran mad at him, so he rushed and drew the great tree king's sledgehammer attack. Li Yongqi swiftly darted away. Instead, Li landed a punch on him named an Eastern Divine Fist. It had a detrimental effect on Tree Demon's body, but he was hoping that such an immense power punch could have lessened Li's spiritual power so that he wouldn't be able to fight any longer. But the Tree Demon was clueless about Li Yunqi's sheer strength. He started stroking him with countless Eastern Divine Fist attacks. It turned out that the invincible Demon King couldn't resist Li's Divine Fist and died instantly. The body of the Tree Demon bursts out multiple cultivation equipment, like cultivation stones, martial arts skills, and cultivation pills. Li Fei Lei and the little demon tree were stunned at how a guy with 3 realms difference in status managed to beat the Demon King so mercilessly. Teacher Jiang was put to choke by one upholder of Director Shan because he failed to get his vengeance. It was another proponent of Director Shan, Teacher Yang, who got the task of subduing Li Yongqi. He already had planned to fail Li in the exams by adding one more test for him to reach the status of a regular student. This status was achieved by gathering numerous contribution points, and these points were earned by completing different tasks. Therefore, Teacher Yang provided him with the farm task of the least contribution points. In addition, he also sent a martial arts student to the farm to assassinate Li Yongqi. The director liked Yang's plan and offered him a vast reward for Li's head. However, Li Yunqi was satisfied with the farm tasks and wanted to learn the martial arts skills of the farmers. A pretty girl was also present. She told her mother that the academy came to assist them in farming, but her mother replied that she didn't have enough contribution points to pay them for work. However, they thanked Li Yunqi because he came to help them. Right after, Li Yunqi watched a student who came towards him while talking on his phone. It was Teacher Yang on the other side of the call who was offering him contribution points for hindering Li's farm tasks. The student was actually a skillful assassin, so he inquired if he mistakenly killed Li Yunqi, to which the teacher replied to the reward of 500 contribution points, but he would also need to kill all the spectators. While he was on the phone, the same pretty girl gave him a white bun she had specially made for him. He rudely threw the bun away, bragged about his cultivation level, and looked down at her because she was just a pathetic human being with no cultivation powers. She was saddened, so Li Yunqi picked up the thrown bun and ate it. It tasted superb, so he asked her how she made such an appetizer. She was pretty relieved, and it made her day. Then he walked with them back home. The next day, Li Yunqi fortified with his plowing tool because he had to farm multiple lands. Farming 100 perfect plows would provide 1 contribution point. Li Yunqi started farming with one of his martial arts techniques called hoe skill. This technique could turn the grass field into farmable square land. But the assassin planned to undo all his efforts, and while he was pondering, Li Yunqi blunged the entire farm in a matter of seconds. The assassin was impressed by his proficiency but schemed to deter his work. The assassin offered him 3 skill cards for free and told him that using the same skill repeatedly could increase his skill capabilities and contribution points. Li Yunqi followed his advice, prompting 2-star hoeing and plowing skills with a collection of 300 contribution points. It happened because Li, the prince of Yunqi's family, can turn 3 of the same skills into a high-tier skill. The assassin got pissed again because he had expected his technique would waste his time, but it ended up finishing Li's assignment quite swiftly. The assassin got enraged and flew up 24 meters high. He threw a 4-kilogram heavy blade at Li Yunqi while he was absorbed in work. But the blade, with the force of 4,500 newtons, just flipped while hitting the plowing stick, and it gashed into his butt. He stumbled with pain and fell directly above Li's plowing stick. The assassin trembled in pain at the deep penetration of the stick in his bum hole. Icing on the cake, Li started plowing the next 100 patches of land, ignorant of what calloused incident had just happened above his head. After plowing the entire farm, he realized weird impressions on each patch and the assassin lying on the ground looking extremely exasperated. In the hospital, the assassin cursed Li and was deeply humiliated. Now every stick he watched gave him cold creeps. A female farmer approached Li Yunqi to get help shearing some sheep. She also gave him clippers and wool clipping skills because the sheep were very irritating. He hit upon a plan to latch the sheep physically and then shear its wool instantly. But the sheep started running away and didn't get into his hands. The assassin was watching him from a distance. He observed Li Yunqi eating some common spirit enhancement stones and fruits dropped by the defeated tree demons. The assassin thought that these stones were useless to let a person break the limit of cultivation energy absorption. He was excited to see Li Yunqi fail because there was no way a warrior could gain such a level of enhancement in one day. A while later, a crackle of cultivation breakthrough transpired. which unlocked mid-tier grade 1 and various other talents, putting the assassin totally amazed because this time, the new skills were unlocked not because of his family traits, but because of Li's ability to discover new talents on level improvement. The female farmer came to see Li Yunqi to assist him in work, but she was left in mere shock that he had sheared the entire farm in a matter of minutes. Now, he must complete the final assignment, weeding the farm, to achieve the status of an official student and start cultivation. The assassin was also set on the ground to kill him, but as the assassin hopped near Li, he had already finished the last patch of land left to plow. So, the assassin failed his mission, and he got the status of an official student. While the assassin was running away in an agony of defeat, Dang Wu and Gao Yang appeared before. Both were class leaders and high-tier grade 1 warriors. They told him that killing Li Yunqi would now be their responsibility, but failing the teacher's mission would mean death for him. The female farmer congratulated Li on his student status. Now, he also had to depart with them because he couldn't wait to join the academy. The little daughter of the lady was emotional about his departure and requested Li Yunqi not to leave. He told her that he would surely come back after a few days or even this night. Who knew what would happen? The little daughter stayed awake till late at night and prepared a bunny-shaped steamed bun, as he expected Li could arrive tonight so she would serve him these eatables. Right after, someone knocked at the door, but as she opened the door, a man kicked her away and the steamed bun fell to the ground. Some students from the academy entered the house and inquired about Li Yunqi. The lady farmer warned them to get off from her daughter, or else she would attack them. Suddenly, Gao Yang's hair burst from the roof, and he held her tightly. He told the students to make the women call for Li. They warned her that they would kill her if he told him any of this was happening. But the lady did the unexpected. She told him that he mustn't come to their place as they were leaving for some days. One student hung up the call and kicked her hard as she forbade Li from coming back. The daughter didn't want to watch her mother in pain, so she agreed to request that he come back. Her mother told her not to indulge Li here, but she was scared and told her everything. One guy abused her, grabbed the phone and told Li to come here, otherwise they would kill the lady and her daughter. Back to Li Yunqi, one guy standing beside him who was listening to all this conversation suggested Li Yunqi go as he had enough cultivation points to re-enter the mountains for cultivation and that the timer had also started, so he must leave. Almost half an hour had gone by, and the students were blaming each other's faults and saying that the teacher would rebuke them if he didn't come out of the academy. The little girl shouted that Li would surely come, to which one guy told her to shut up. Otherwise, she would be killed, and no one would even come to rescue her. He further boasts that only in fictional worlds do heroes come to rescue insects like her, and Li Yunqi would be dumb if he saved her. Soon as he said that, Li Yunqi came from nowhere and punched the soul out of him. Li Yunqi asked if they were the guys who bullied them. Seeing this, the leader ordered his students to get him killed immediately. One of the boys abused and made fun of Li Yunqi's strength. He asked if they had any problem with him. The boy told Li that he was funny, and then seriously shouted at Li that of course they had. Then all the boys started to pounce upon Li to kill him, but Li punched them with sheer strength, and bam! All of them were knocked out, and he made a cute pose like an assassin with a baby face. Then, the long-haired Gang Yao ordered all the boys to step back as Li was not a normal one to deal with. Gang Yao threatened Li Yunqi that he would pay the price for offending someone he shouldn't have, and told Li that he would die. Gang told Li he might be able to give Li a merciful death, but Li innocently asked what it was. Gang knew Li was stubborn and attacked him with his hair, but he dodged it easily. Li Yunqi then counterattacked Gang with a punch, but his hair protected him, and he laughed at him. One of the boys ironically started to tell Li that Gang's hair was his strength and they defended him, and to defeat him would be nothing more than beating a bug. Gang laughed as he saw Li still trying to beat him. Gang ridiculed him by saying that one strand of hair was enough to beat him, and after he beat him, Li Yunqi could die in peace. He stood there and watched it all. As Gang's hair attacked him, he punched it so hard that all of Gang's hair fell off his head, and he became bald and started to shout that he would kill him for destroying his silky hair, but he slammed Gang again and knocked him out. One of the boys found it hard to believe their boss had lost and wondered if he should fight to die or beg for mercy. Out of nowhere, Dang Wu arrived and called Li Yunqi a rookie. Dang Wu ordered the boy to record what he would do with Li Yunqi and wanted all the awards this time. The boy praised Dang Wu, but Dang Wu was pumped and yelled at the boy to shut up and record. Dang Wu knew that it wouldn't be an easy fight and accepted it. He started punching the ground, on which Dang Wu laughed that he scared him with just his arrival. It was a plowing ritual, and suddenly the ground burst, and Dang Wu took a huge blow and was on the floor. At that time, the boy was all set to record, but as he saw Dang Wu knocked out on the floor, he was stunned to see Dang Wu and couldn't believe that Dang was saying very challenging words but got knocked out so easily. Then, Li Yunqi stared at the boy and ordered him to bring the phone on. He started to kneel and asked forgiveness, but he didn't want to kill him and instead held him off his shirt and ordered the boy to take off his pants. The boy nodded, but Li Yunqi forced him and warned him that his pictures would be leaked if he kept behaving the same way. Then, the boy went to Teacher Yang and assured him of Li's treatment, and that he wouldn't see that brat who tortured Shan Yuan. The boy also told Teacher Yang that he had killed the 2 witnesses at the farm, and Yang was impressed. Still, as the boy explained to Yang that Li somehow managed to escape, Yang became furious and worried. But the boy assured Yang that he would be injured badly and might remain in the hospital, and he wouldn't see that kid near the academy anytime soon. 2 girls, one purple-haired and the other brown-haired, came close to him, asked if he recognized them as they studied in the same class, and offered him to go with them for cultivating. Li Yunqi agreed to come. The brown-haired girl felt nervous as it was her first time cultivating, but the other girl calmed her down as the cultivation areas were divided into different tiers. They were going to a lower tier one and told her there weren't many rules here, but they all were strict. The mountains of the academy were built on spiritual pools, and warriors went to these pools for cultivation. First-year warriors like them could only go to the lowest tier. All these were under the supervision of some seniors, and the brown-haired girl wondered if seniors were handsome and would give some privilege to girls. As the group was on their way to cultivation, one of them couldn't figure out why they were to cultivate in the lowest tier, even after giving points to the academy. The senior Fang Dadi told them that they didn't bring Fang some gifts. The boys found it unfair, but Fang exerted his supremacy that he was in power, and he would decide. Fang told them that they could go to the higher tier if the 2 very girls who were with Li Yunqi came behind the tree with him. Otherwise, they could go to the lower tier and might see minor improvements after years. He interrupted and told Fang that they would go to the lower tier, on which the girls shuddered, but Li Yunqi assured them it would be fine. The senior was angry about this. As Li and the girls went there, they found that the place was utterly dried up, and there wasn't even grass, but he was confident that he could still manage to cultivate a little. The girls sensed no power and were infuriated. Fang came again to persuade the girls to use the higher tier, but the girls stood up and yelled at Fang that they weren't afraid of him. Suddenly the wind blew. Fang was astonished about how the wind could flow in the public cultivating area. The flowers bloomed with the wind of magic, and the grass grew. It was Li Yunqi who was mobilizing the power and extracting it. The girls knew it was time to cultivate, and the power was overflowing already. The girls shouted at Li to stop as they were on their power limits. Li Yunqi absorbed all the power but hardly felt any difference. Fang was furious at this and threatened him that he had broken the rules and that he would die if he did that again. He didn't speak a word, which infuriated Fang more. Fang told him that he, Gao Yang, and Dang Wu were brother Shan Yuan's subordinates. But his partners of Fang dragged him away from him, and they talked about a boy who just came out of suspension, the guy who lives for money. Fang told them that they would hire that guy for Li. On the other hand, Li Yunqi thought he might kill them with his skills. He went to the assignment department teacher and asked them to give him one more assignment so he could level up. But the teacher refused and told him that assignments were given to the teams, and that if Li Yunqi wanted more contribution points, he would have to bring a teammate. After this, he went and asked everybody to team up with him for the assignment, but they all refused. As he was looking for a partner, Fang came covered up in a hoodie and asked Li Yunqi if he was the one last day at the cultivation area, but he instead asked him to team up with him. Fang agreed and told Li to follow him as he wanted to introduce Li to someone special. On their way, Fang was laughing inside at how foolish Li was as he was still following him and wanted revenge on Li Yunqi. Fang gave him the direction to the alley where his new teammate would be. As he stepped in, Fang used his Tier 2 skill and locked him in the iron cage. Fang didn't forget about the humiliation of the cultivation area and wanted to kill Li. Fang was furious and told him it was too late, but he wasn't moved a little and told Fang he wasn't afraid but thought nobody could kill him. Fang said to him that he would have killed Li Yunqi, but he controlled himself. But now there was a boy in there who was used to dealing with first-year nerds like you for a price, and now he also got a magical beast. Then, the boy whom Fang hired named Li, a Grade 1 high true warrior, and his beast, a Grade 1 mid-tier Trent Bing, arrived. Fang shouted at him to kill Li Feilei right now, but as Li turned his back, They all recognized each other from the incident when he saved Li Feilei and Trant from the Trant King. Trant called Li Yunqi a big brother and gave him candy, too. Fang couldn't believe what was happening. Li Feilei told him that he had been looking for him for a long time, and that he had also teamed up with Trant. He asked them to team up with him, and they all agreed. Li Feilei didn't expect Li to be this frank. Li Feilei and Trant asked him if Fang was messing up with him. Fang threatens Li Feilei that he will show a payment to their boss and would get Li Feilei out, but Li Feilei breaks Fang's phone. Fang was furious at this act. Then, Trant wanted to show his loyalty to Li and grabbed Fang with his vine roots and pulled him against the rod, and Fang felt the pressure so hard and fainted. He felt a little bad, but Li Feilei told Li not to feel bad for Fang as he deserved this. Li Feilei requested Li to come with them and let Li Feilei introduce his grinding methods. Trant asked Li Yunqi if he was satisfied with his display. 3 of them reached the magical beast forest. Trant started introducing himself, saying that his name was Ah Bing, working with humans and stuff, but Li Feilei forced Trant to go as they were already having a lot to do. Trant said that his job was easier, as his 2 human brothers had already taken the assignments of expelling magical beasts. Trant was basically bribing the beasts with spirit stones to stay away for a while. The assignments were completed easily. Trant divided the spirit stones equally among the beasts. Li Feilei got the money while he got the contribution points. They made huge deals and immense profits in money, stones, and contribution points in a few days. But one day they met a beast that didn't agree to accept the deal and created an issue. The Golden Scarab, a grade 1 mid-stage beast, shouted at them that he wanted to eat cultivators instead of stones. Trant was surprised to see as the beast told him earlier that he needed stones only. Trent saw something as the beast's eyes were glowing differently while the beast kept yelling cultivators. Suddenly, the beast evolved into a grade 1 peak-tier Golden Scarab champion, became a humongous giant, and kept screaming louder that he needed cultivators. Trent couldn't believe this. The giant beast then hit Trent in the sky as Trent shouted at Li Yunqi and Li Feilei to kill the beast. Li Feilei was angry and asked if the beast had a death wish. Li Yunqi was processing everything and stopped Li Feilei while the beast kept shouting cultivators repeatedly. The beast's eccentricity came to an end and attacked Li Yunqi while Li Feilei was calm as he trusted Li Yunqi a lot. The beast smashed a huge rolling cannonball toward Li, which he dodged with ease. While Li Feilei was winking his eye at Li, the cannonball hit Li Feilei hard, so he fainted. Li Yunqi asked the beast if the one from the ancient clan who transformed it was still there. The beast stopped for a second and realized that the one who made the beast stronger was from an ancient spirit clan and regretted that he shouldn't have gone with him. Li was relieved to hear that the ancient clan wasn't there. After that, the beast assured Li of a painless death if he told him more about the ancient clan. But Li squeezed the beast with the binding technique he learned from the trance. The beast was surprised to see that, but he was still arrogant when Li pulled out the Trant King hammer. He was scared to death and wondered how he could use that skill at a lower level. Then he killed the beast and obtained a new skill called Rolling Ball Cannon. Li Feilei, and Trant all got together and were relieved that the ancient clan had left, as Li knew that his powers did not match the ancient clan. He realized something and hurried towards the academy for cultivation. He went to rent some cultivation areas of his own. The dealer was surprised to see Li Yunqi was a first-year student, and it cost a lot to rent a cultivation area, and affording it took work. As he showed the dealer his contribution points and asked if they were enough, the dealer was shocked up to the core to see 1,200 points. He was surprised to see that Li Yunqi had so many points and assumed that he might be rich or powerful. The dealer bloomed and offered him 2 months free if he paid for the whole year and told him that it was 100 points per month plus some more add-ons. Li was happy, and the dealer assured them that he would get it ready for Li Yunqi. They entered the cultivation area, which was beautiful. Li Yunqi immediately learned the rolling cannonball skill, which Li Feilei advised him not to learn these skills so fast, but he told him that he learned it with hard work. But Li Feilei explained to him that Li should learn the skills, but not the way he's doing right now. Li Feilei explained that one should choose skills according to his plans in the future and try to pick skills of the same type more, and also told him there are a lot of wild skills, but they're not useful in the long run. He then understood that he couldn't learn all the skills he wanted. Li Feilei told him that, in short, the number of fighting skills for everyone is limited. Li Feilei then revealed all his fighting skills in space that appeared when he said some words and advised Li that he should choose his skills wisely. He did the same, but his fighting skills didn't appear, and he was surprised why. Li Feilei hypothesized that Li's space might be bigger than this cultivation area, so it didn't appear. Li Feilei told Li that a man had a space greater than the whole village. Li Feilei then asked Li about his cultivation time, as his own was 2 hours, and whoever completed cultivation first would have to wait for the others. Li needed to learn about cultivation time. Li Feilei explained that there's a limit to which a man can absorb power. Otherwise, the rich would easily become guardians. As they were headed to work, Li felt they couldn't handle this alone, so he called the 2 girls to come along. While the girls were grateful for this offer from him, Li Feilei felt a bit jealous. Nonetheless, he took Li to the side and told him that even if he couldn't handle it, he still wouldn't do this kind of thing. He couldn't understand, so Li Feilei clearly said that bringing girls to do that kind of thing was unacceptable. Li told Li Feilei that he thought he might be unable to do that. Li Feilei flattened his chest and told him that he could handle everything. Then he started to cultivate power, due to which strong winds flowed and everybody was disturbed by the waves. But soon it was overflowing and too much to handle, so the girls and Li Feilei shouted at him to stop, which he did. Li Feilei accepted Li Yunqi's greatness and apologized and assured him that he would have a great future and believed he would become a guardian, a man that guards the borders. Li Feilei told him that there were 2 guardians of almost grade 6 and sisters. Meanwhile, at the border of the eastern region, Dabai, a grade 5 mid-tier warrior, asked a man with a menacing smile about his identity. The man threw a cut hand on the ground, on which Dabai felt that the real threat had arrived. Dabai loomed over the creature menacingly. The warrior's eyes gleamed with the urge to conquer. Her form hardened like iron, and the defending warrior's forearm shot spikes glimmering red with poison, forming into a sword. She dragged the blade to the ground, advancing toward her opponent. Dabai then lunged off the ground swiftly and landed face to face with the creature, her pearly leaden eyes contrasting with its aqua blue ones. With a quick slash, the lady warrior landed headfirst on the opposing beast and sent him hurtling away into the sky. The poisonous sword pierced through the wind, blinding the beast with its sheer light. Back in the arena, the girls thanked Li Yunqi for the opportunity to cultivate with him, and they bid their farewell and stepped out of the stadium. Left with his thoughts, he wondered forlornly whether the cultivation arena could only suffice for half his total potential. If he had known that earlier, he would have rented more than one arena, but all he could do was grind. And that's what he told his spiritual brother as they pursued a new assignment or an adventure, who followed him merrily. Off premises of the arena, the first-year girl duo was practically backed into a corner by a bandaged hand, and they warned the owner of the limb that Li Yunqi would soon be out of his arena, so he shouldn't harass them. The hand belonged to none other than Fang Dadi. He had purposefully arrived at the scene to encounter the first-year student for vengeance regarding his earlier embarrassment. Just then, the man in question arrived at the scene, making Fang Dadi turn his ire towards him, boisterously commanding him to step onto the platform for a brawl, staking their arenas as collateral. He had planned on making Dang Wu fight on his behalf to defeat Li Yunqi once and for all. But he had his ideas about the proposition, assuming that he was being offered just what he required by this generous man, and even offered to cultivate next time together. Seeing him trapped in his snare, Fang immediately rang Dang Wu to arrive at the scene quickly. After that, Fang and Li Yunqi left the premises, entrusting the arena and its safety to Fei Lei. Back at the eastern border, Dabai and the monster had a fierce head-on battle. The terrain surrounding them was shattered to bits. The female guardian was beginning to show signs of exhaustion, her lips bloody. But to her fear, her opponent showed no signs of giving up. The guardian feared that such a formidable enemy would never cross the border lest hell broke loose. She couldn't even detect his cultivation level, as he used no fighting skills and had only held his ground against her by physical strength. She barely held herself, but her determination was far more tenacious than her physical form. Grunting, the warrior stood up again, aiming her venomous red spikes at the beast again. The attack hit him straight on his chest, sending him flying with a gaping hole. The sword crackled as Dabai gracefully landed on the ground. The beast fell behind her, but to her immense shock, he revived right before her eyes. The gaping wound slowly refilled, and he finally launched his spiritual energy cannon. The gush of energy, black and blue, swirled towards her, the blow blasting her and her armor into smithereens as the guardian fell on the ground. The creature then extended his hand towards her to finish her off, but the limb was grabbed by a furious-looking him, who remarked on his earlier arrival. He threw him off by the stalk and hurled the fist of the Eastern god. The punch launched the beast, and Li Yunqi marveled at his strength. Seeing this happen before her eyes, a glimmer of hope rose in the female guardian's eyes as she took Yunqi's form in her eyes. pondered whether this stranger was the one her sister, Danai, mentioned that conquered the king of the Black Mountain. The female guardian hoped that he would be able to defeat this monster as well. His presence also mildly rattled the beast, who observed that the hit he suffered had more prowess than anyone nearby. He demanded to know his identity. He sneakily replied that his forte was dealing with beings like him. The being was confused about how the human knew about his species and inquired whether he was from the independent unit, but he denied standing squared facing off the creature in front of him and said that he was incorrect. But the beast was having none of it, and it swooped in the air, jumping behind the boy in an attempt of a sneak attack. Confident in his power, the beast boasted about ending the boy and charged at him. But Lee Yunqi was faster, and with a swift turn he blocked the attack and retaliated with the fist of the plowing god, hitting in repeatedly on his chest, torso, and legs. But to his dismay, his punches did not send the brute flying but made him cockier about its capacity. Lee Yunqi was not done, however, as Beanstalk shot from his arms, trapping the creature and creating hammers from the plant to smash the beast between them into smithereens. The attack was Double Trent King Hammer. The hammers unleashed to reveal rubble falling on the ground, making Da Bai, who was still crouched behind the young man, believe that the beast was defeated. But Lee Yunqi sensed something amiss, and true to his thoughts, the beast appeared from the smoke, merely stripped off its initial spiritual energy armor slightly. It scoffed that if this was the best the young man could conjure, then perhaps the battle was lost for him. This statement put Lee Yunqi in a problem, as he couldn't use his lightning, lest he blew up the whole city. Still, he wondered if he could blast the beast to the crater Lee Yunqi previously created with his lightning strike, and perhaps he could combine another attack with his mini lightning bolt. But as he thought of his next moves, the female guardian rose to her feet, a fierce determination in her stance as she apologized to the young man and vowed to subdue the creature by hook or by crook. Using her venomous self-destruct technique, Dabai would demolish all the life in the surrounding area. Her eyes gleamed green as she began chanting the practice, throwing him into a state of panic as her self-destruction meant that the guardian would also be able to end himself and her. He bounced around the terrain, desperately thinking of an idea and trying his best to stop Dabai from using that technique. Still, the female warrior was as if in a trance as Dabai mentally bid farewell to her sister, putting even the creature in an anxious mood. But as Dabai was about to finish her chant, Lee Yunqi clamped her mouth shut with his hand, scolding her for not listening to his plan. But it was as if the female warrior had given up entirely, claiming that the guardian could sense his cultivation level, but it was nearly insufficient to defeat the beast. She even promised to be his underling in the next life in compensation for taking his life in this one. But before she could conjure the spell once again, thwack! A smack resonated on the back of her neck, rendering her unconscious, leaving him to deal with the beast and the despairing thought that perhaps he assaulted a woman. The beast, however, was quick to celebrate, breaking Lee Yunqi out of his reverie, so joyous that he even took away the duo's last resort at defeating it. However, he is not worried about that and instead scolds the monster for almost making him assault a lady, the one thing his mother taught him against. He turns to face the creature, threatening to end it, causing the beast to sputter indignantly at the accusation and his fearless attitude towards it, sending a spiritual energy cannon towards him only to be met with a rolling ball cannon of his own. The forces clash, Lee Yunqi's red-hot energy consuming the creature's icy blue one, sending it off to the crater as his move was carefully calculated. But the issue of the lady he knocked unconscious remained as her identity was unknown to him. He commented how she was too dutiful for her excellence, sacrificing herself even when she wasn't strong enough. He couldn't bear the thought of leaving her stranded on the terrain, so he hoisted her up and texted the Happy Family chat group asking Fei Lei to send him the location of his home, which he did, but the site was an orphanage. When asked by Lee Yunqi, Fei Lei revealed that his mother passed away when he was young, claiming it to be a long tale for tomorrow. He then asked him to buy 3 identical medical skills, making Bing Bing worried he would hurt himself. Still, he said the medication was for someone else and instructed him to prepare a bed and hot water before signing out. The orphanage resonated with the protests of Fei Lei, who finally recognized the patient as the female guardian of the eastern border, Dabai, in her flesh and blood. He exclaimed in horror how he would heal the guardian at the door of her demise with basic medical skills, and true to his words, Dabai lay severely injured on the bed, her form covered with bandages, and her right arm severed off. His rants made Lee Yunqi stop in his tracks, as he also realized the number of her injuries and wondered how the 3 skills would fuse and what the result would be. But Li Yunqi had fate in his familial generational talent that would at least be able to stop her from dying. As he began to fuse the skills, Fei Lei loudly exclaimed against the decision and asked him to wait while he phoned the higher authorities and ran out of the building. Left alone to his devices, Li Yunqi began to learn the medical skills, namely the 2-star anesthetic technique of Old Bai pushing the donkey over and the 2-star healing technique of the Holy Light of the Damned. The names were incredibly confusing for him, specifically the donkey, but he tried them out on her nonetheless. First, Li Yunqi used the anesthetic on the female guardian, causing her to vomit, spewing her fluids. The result was unexpected for Li Yunqi, but he carried on. Outside the building, Fei Lei was pacing the grounds, calling the authorities and relaying to them that Dabai was injured, and in his orphanage, to which the responder informed that they would arrive in the next week, chalking up his call to be a disingenuous prank. Fei Lei also realized that as he headed back, sad and worried that his friend would not be able to help the female guardian despite his immense talent, Li Yunqi unleashed the other medical skill, 2-star healing lightning of the damned. The unadulterated power engulfed the orphanage building with immense auburn and golden light, making Fei Lei stop and look up at the scene, amazed by the magnitude of the medical skill. When he came inside, Bing Bing was screaming about his eyes, and Fei Lei looked at his spiritual brother with newfound respect, as he had not only healed Dabai but also restored the arm she had lost. Meanwhile, though disoriented, the patient sat up from bed and looked around, slowly remembering her last thoughts before passing out. The guardian looked around for the beast Dabai was in battle with, but instead saw 3 figures, and in her intoxicated state, believed that they were 3 other monsters that had captured her. Enraged, the guardian again began to chant the self-destruct technique, making Fei Lei panic as he recognized the process. But before she could finish her chant, Yunqi again knocked her out and instructed the other 2 to tend to her while he attempted to perform a task. He then recommends that Bing Bing restrain and gag the female guardian, lest she tries to complete the chant again. He does so and retrains her with vines, the method being slightly crude. Li Yunqi instructs him never to do that again, and heads out. At the crater, the spirit of the Black Mountain was mourning her loss. The bunny female hadn't expected such a low-tier district to have a fighter as skilled as Li Yunqi. In her plans, the bunny girl would have already conquered that district and ruled the people, with them serving her delicious meals. But alas, all she had left was this roasted rabbit. But remembering the incident enraged her, so the girl shrugged off the thoughts and focused on eating the rabbit, her first meal in days. However, as she brought it to her mouth, a ball of light invaded the ground, throwing her off the cliff. The smoke and rubble cleared, and the culprit was revealed to be the creature Li Yunqi blasted earlier. The beast was annoyed at the turn of events. Its opponent hadn't caused much damage, but teleported it to this cliff instead. Its eyes landed on the roasted rabbit, now dirtied and abandoned. As it began to pick it up, a ferocious red fire appeared behind it, containing the Soul Master of the Black Mountain, who threatened to roast it instead for ruining her meal, and unleashed the Black Mountain monster from an obsidian ball, and commanded it to use blazing death on the creature. But the beast looked up at the black monster, smirking as it warmed up for the fight. Meanwhile, in the forest on a trail, Li Yunqi was breezing through the woods, wondering if the Spirit Clan creature had landed in the crater, and if they appeared now, it meant that their schedule was altered. Plus, now they knew about his family and this era, making this an almost impossible battle. Li Yunqi had forged with his lightning skill the crater, and a transcending battle region had broken out. On one side was the warrior from a high-tier area, Su Xiaohao, the Soul Master controlling the spirit of the Black Mountain. Soul Masters were a unique and sparse warrior breed who defeated spirits and trapped them in the soul eggs. The warriors in those eggs were an amalgamation of their reality and the mind of their Soul Master, thus rendering them an elementary level of consciousness and extreme loyalty to their master. Xiaohao commands the mountain spirit to use only 10% of its strength and weakest claw fighting skill to ensure a fair fight. The mountain spirit obediently charges at the creature from the Spirit Clan, its tongue swishing out manically and its eyes fierce. The beast from the Spirit Clan scoffed at the sheer arrogance of the female Soul Master and squared up magnanimously, letting the spirit have the first strike. The red claw came down on the creature, and its eyes glinted with white light as it vowed to show the vast difference between humans and the Spirit Clan. But as the attack reached the creature, Xiaohao instructed it to use everything it had, every skill. The Black Mountain warrior rained repeated dark blazing death claw on the spirit creature, smiting him and the cliff underneath. Xiao Hao watched the destruction with glee, boastful of the new fighting skills she learned from Li Yunqi, and vowed to use it on him whenever they crossed paths. But amidst the death claws appeared the cyan light of spiritual energy cannon. The Spirit Clan beast rose, admitting that if Xiao Hao had instructed the Black Mountain monster to use his full strength, it would have been life-threatening. But alas, the chance had passed. It was now retaliation time, and he began destroying the Black Mountain spirit with full strength. Xiao Hao looked despaired at the scene, and her egg warrior was defeated twice in a row despite its unbeatable reputation. Determined, she decided to use her last resort and yelled at someone behind the Spirit Clan creature, asking why it took them so long. The tactic was to distract the beast while she prepared a surprise attack and charged at its head. But the Spirit Clan beast remained unaffected. It was said that the upper limit strength of the soul egg was the same as their soul master. Thus, Xiao Hao was at least a grade 5 level warrior, thus meaning that the soul masters were usually more robust than their egg warriors. Still, unfortunately, some masters are so heavily reliant on their eggs that they lose their combat strengths. Xiao Hao appears to be the case. The bunny girl then yelped that she had done all she could, and that the one hiding should now come and finish the job. The tactic worked on the Spirit Clan beast, and he was distracted, allowing the female soul master to run away. But the spirit beast jumped and landed behind her before the girl could cover a mile. The beast then grabbed her and knocked a punch across her face. All the while, the girl marveled over his speed. He then walked menacingly over to the soul master and questioned how the girl thought she would survive, especially after trying to fool it twice. Sprawled in front of it, Xiao Hao desperately looked for a way to escape and tried to talk about Li Yunqi to distract the beast, but it was way ahead of her. Musing aloud that it would look for him, he presented himself to it on a platter. Xiao Hao thought the beast was playing a trick on her, but to her shock, a figure climbed up the mountain where the spirit was looking. The figure was revealed to be Li Yunqi, who walked into the fight with the beast, promising to end him this time. Li Yunqi was deep in thought. The Spirit Clan had surfaced earlier than he expected, and not only that, but they also knew about his family and their internal problems. His thoughts were, however, broken by a sarcastic chuckle from the spirit beast who mocked the young man. While hidden behind the rocks, Xiao Hao watched the standoff, weirded out about his sudden presence, wondering how, of all people, he was the one arriving at the cliff. Back at the face-off, Li Yunqi stood rigidly in front of the spirit beast who attacked him, his senses ringing that something wasn't right. Seeing this, Xiao Hao wondered if her earlier culprits would battle each other and mortally injure one another. Then her chances to rule the region would immensely multiply. Meanwhile, Li Yunqi blocks the oncoming punch and serves one himself to retaliate. However, his moves were calculated because he needed information from the spirit beast before exterminating it. Their fight grew more intense by the second, and soon they were covered in dust and smoke. Only their silhouettes were visible to the hidden soul master, who peered from behind the rocks, wondering if she should flee. Then the girl remembered that he had not seen her in the previous battle, so he did not know her or her relationship with the Black Mountain warrior. So the girl assumed herself to be safe as long as he won. And if he won, she would be beside him, looking for a chance to subdue him and make him her egg warrior. While she was brewing her nefarious plans, Li Yunqi focused on extracting any information he could from the spirit beast, but feared that he lacked the skill required. So he took a direct hit of the spirit energy cannon from the beast and landed stretched out on the rocky terrain, his form bruised and dusty as he remarked his opponent's strength with respect. The turn of events shocked Xiao Hao, who yelped why he took a hit at face value, fearing that the beast would come for her as soon as he was dealt with, so she quickly fled the scene. The beast also was positively surprised at its win, wondering aloud how a single blast defeated the young man. Gone was his steely resolve. However, all Li Yunqi could pitifully cough out was that he was defeated and would pass away soon, so the spirit might as well share some information with him before he passed away. He continued, asking why their clan had invaded earlier than they should have and how they knew so much about humans, begging for clarity before he perished, a man's dying wish. The Soul Master peeked from the boulders, morbidly curious about whether this was how a human took their last living breaths. But on closer inspection, she realized that he was tricking the beast. However, when the spirit beast leaned in closer, took Li Yunqi's chin in his grasp, and told him to figure out when he would meet them all in the afterlife, he knew his plan had failed miserably. With this, his mood was spoiled as he had to shift his tactics. Thus, he lifted his forefingers and cast the technique of Old Bai, pushing the Donley over on the beast. And when the beast felt that it leaped backward, Its demeanor was a mixture of freaked out and annoyed as it questioned what kind of fickle martial skills he used in the fight. Had he lost his mind? But weirdly enough, the spirit was behaving as if under a trance. Its cheeks flushed, its vision blurred, and it started to relent the information Li Yunqi was demanding earlier. Still, before it could do so, the young man flung a stone with his vines on the hidden soul master to knock her unconscious, lest she heard something she wasn't supposed to. All the while, the bunny girl wondered what big secret was being revealed through such detailed means. The beast divulged the information that the protective seal against the spirit clan was deteriorating, so it was not a matter of why, but why it was earlier than expected. It was all because of the betrayal of some of the humans against their race. The spirit slowly rose to its feet, mocking the humans, and continued that the most important thing was that prophesied one who could seal the spirits again had not arrived yet. The three princes who could achieve that power had just begun their journey, thus making this a perfect time to capture and defeat them while they were not strong enough. So wait while the human race would soon cease to exist. But as the spirit crept towards the young man to finish him, he immediately blocked the spirit and asked how they thought they could defeat the three princes. The question was appalling for the beast, who explained proudly that the princes were at their weakest, with two of them having just started their cultivation journey, so they were easier to target. But despite the statement, he was not fretting in the slightest, as he activated the holy light of the damned, asking the spirit what possibly the spirit beasts could do to them even if they managed to find one of them. With that technique, he left the spirit powerless, and mused that he was far more kind-hearted than his brother. These statements made the spirit beast realize that it was fighting against one of the princes. Still, he had different thoughts in mind that they had a mole in their family, and two of his younger brothers did not hide in the castle as per their original intention, but instead cinched his powers and quietly left their empire. As the beast relished this opportunity to defeat one of the princes to subdue the morale of the human race, he made a finger pistol. He shot the 2-star mini lightning bolt, the lightning torrent, at the creature, engulfing the premises with blinding white and blue light flashes. But when the smoke dissipated, the beast emerged, cackling that the attack was barely by it, and if this was Yunqi's prowess, then he should give up while he still could. As this was all a part of Li Yunqi's strategy, he had, however, failed to predict one thing. Back at the orphanage, Bing Bing was playing red light green light with the children when he turned around to see a spirit beast approaching the grounds. Quick on his feet, he ushered the kids inside the building. The beast had sensed some spiritual energy in the orphanage. Thus, its interest was piqued as to why the humans were still alive in the area if the spirit beasts had interacted with them. But despite his feeble stance, Bing Bing stood his ground against the beast and ordered him to leave. Li Yunqi had failed to anticipate that more than one beast had entered the human realm. The beast spread its limbs, generated a spiritual orb surrounding it, and sarcastically bemoaned that Li Yunqi could never be parred with its strength. Hearing that, he got lost in thought, as he begrudgingly agreed with the beast that his current spiritual cultivation, every time Yunqi struck it with the lightning torrent, Li Yunqi could only damage its armor slightly, as no matter the spiritual energy the young man had in store, Yunqi could only utilize a small amount at the time, as he had a low cultivation level. At his total capacity, he could only use his plowing skill to launch 20 fists of the Eastern God, and he could only do 2 Trent King Hammer at a time, and only 1 lightning torrent at a time. But he wasn't nervous as he should have been, as he created a lightning torrent razor around him. The wind and thunder picked up and made a swirl, the attack crackling with tremendous power. Then he looked straight into the eyes of the beast and claimed to have a card still up his sleeve. Despite his claims, the spirit beast was not worried in the slightest, as it was confident that it had such a spirit energy capacity that far exceeded anything Li Yunqi possessed. Even if he used all his energy, he couldn't even fathom defeating the spirit beast, as he was a mortal. However, he did not respond verbally, but shot vines from the ground to restrain the beast, each vine ensnaring its limbs and neck. He mused that he might sound prideful if the young man said that, but Yunqi was not a mere mortal, nor a measly warrior as he shot the beast with the lightning torrent, the current passing through the vines as they held it in place and shot it. The entrapped creature was not bothered by that, as the attack did not cause significant harm. But to its horror, he recovered his spiritual energy within seconds and launched another torrent. The paced recovery shocked the beast, who loudly expressed his thoughts, much to the annoyance of Li Yunqi, who said that he was one of the princes they were looking for, so his capabilities would amount to his reputation. As he explained that, he continued firing the lightning torrent at the beast, his attack now 5-fold as it usually was. causing the beast to lose its strength as it fell to its knees. Even then, its demeanor was cocky, as it believed that even if it perished, others from its clan would soon arrive and avenge it. The beast then procured a messenger chicken which it would use to alert the nearest spirit clan member. The beast threatened the young man that soon. The other spirit beasts would arrive and end him. But as soon as it launched the bird, Lee Yunqi shot it down. Enraged by his unorthodox fighting methods, the beast used all its energy to summon countless chickens to alert its clan about the prince. But the creature could not even boast for a few seconds before all chickens he launched came crashing down, shot by him, who was weirdly apologetic for using that technique and even allowed the beast to attack him in retaliation. But before he could finish his sentence, or the chickens could touch the ground, the beast pierced its own heart with its bare hands, as it believed that its death would leave a considerable spirit mark on the region. So when more capable clan members invaded, they would follow this mark, and not only conquer the prince but all the humans in this area. This action was not something he anticipated, and thus he felt helpless. Meanwhile, at the orphanage, Bing Bing and Fei Lei did their best to defeat or at least stall the beast until help arrived. Both were down to their last bout of strength, battered and bloody but still standing. But when the beast began to unleash its final attack, Fei Lei urged Bing Bing to evacuate with the kids quickly. They were, however, unaware of the numerous warriors approaching the orphanage. The grounds were transformed into a post-apocalyptic scene with countless burnt chicken corpses all around the field, with the three living people in an almost standoff. One beast that was at the brink of death, a prince confused at the turn of events, and a soul master who just started waking up. This sudden death wasn't something Lee Yunqi had wished for, and he vocally expressed his concerns regarding the rapid deterioration of the creature and the situation. And his tense stance wasn't unnoticed by the female soul master, who felt that her survival chances against other beasts that would eventually arrive were slim, so she should probably flee while she could. But to her surprise, he blasted a blazing white light at the beast, which the girl recognized as a healing light, her surprise being why he would heal the monster he just defeated. He acknowledged that it must die, but on his terms. The beast spat out blood and boasted that it was no use to take him to a different location as its mark was halfway made, and thus it must be completed here by hook or crook. But before the beast could stab itself again, Lee Yunqi stopped its hand and said that he would require its powers, making the beast scoff. He then brought its hand forward and wondered loudly what the chant came from the device in its hand. The chant was a popular pop song, and upon hearing it, the beast became agitated and confused as it thought Lee Yunqi was using music to hypnotize it. In his other hand, Lee Yunqi held his phone and waited for something as he watched the time pass. As he gripped its hand tightly, he taunted the beast for not knowing basic technical and internet features as they were sealed off. Just then, his eyes landed on the clock, and he realized that the time was up, so he swirled the beast around before landing one quick hit on it, ending its life. As he did so, his phone said he had obtained a new fighting skill, the spiritual energy cannon. This action confused Xiao Hao as she slowly picked up the situation that he saved the beast only to gain its power. As the girl thought that Lee Yunqi made eye contact with her, in his thoughts, he was starting to feel lightheaded as he had depleted his spiritual energy. Still, the bunny girl felt that her identity was compromised as the summoner of the Black Mountain Warrior. Then her eyes landed on the phone screen where she saw a chat that showed a location. Slowly, he trudged toward the Soul Master and asked her to come home with her. Seeing her confused, he fumbled an explanation that he meant for her to take him. But before he could finish the sentence, his eyes rolled back, and he fell onto the ground with a thud. Right after his fall, Xiao Hao poked him to see if he was unconscious, as the little girl initially thought this to be a perfect opportunity to subdue him into her egg warrior. But as the girl pondered, she realized he had saved her life. Thus, she couldn't take advantage of him. So Xiao Hao placed him in a carriage, dragged by the Black Mountain Warrior, and headed towards the orphanage. Back at the place mentioned, the circumstances were bleaker than ever. Fei Lei was kneeling, with the beast's tail stabbing through his chest. The beast was impressed with his determination, but was willing to see the battle through, and he began to deliver the final blow. But before it could do so, a stone landed on its face. The one who struck it was a child from the orphanage who was bawling his eyes out, vowing to kill the beast when he grows to avenge the beating his uncle suffered. But the beast scoffed that the child would never grow up. However, before the beast could do anything further, it sensed a presence behind it just as an attack was launched. The attacker was a burly middle-aged man who delivered the King Kong Mountainous Heavy Cannon Punch. Interested by the powerful stranger, the beast climbed up the roof where the man was. As it climbed, the man asked if the beast was behind the chaos at the academy in the last few days. The beast jeered that they were unsettling the place, but the man need not worry as he was about to be killed anyway. But before the beast could do anything, another man rushed up the roof and cast another technique, the Dragon Slayer blade. The burning orange blade was inches away from the beast's face when its eyes opened with a murderous glint, and it turned around and struck the man with a beam of energy through his heart, making the man slumped on the rooftop, broken and bleeding. But as the beast began to move forward, the fallen man grabbed its ankle to stop it, as the previous man hurled another King Kong punch, sending the beast flying into the sky. That is when he looked down at the fallen man who sputtered blood from his lips and asked the older man, Director Sean, to defeat the monster and bring it to him. Sean told him not to worry. He would beg the beast for forgiveness and look around at the rest of the fighters, ordering them to take down the monster with him, even at the cost of their lives. As he gave that war cry, his eyes shone red as he powered up and propelled himself to the sky, followed by his team. The beast gazed at the men, realizing that their fight tactic was risking themselves for others. Thud, thud, thud. The wind rang with the sounds of heavy footsteps of the Black Mountain as it trudged towards the orphanage, dragging the carriage, its tongue out from the sweltering heat. Xiao Hao was in a relatively bad mood inside the carriage, lamenting her poor luck. Her encounter with the murderous spirit beast left her shivering and thankful that she would never re-encounter another one. But apparently, she quickly thought so as another spirit beast staggered into her view. However, before Xiao Hao could turn around or defend herself, the girl realized that the beast was beaten and on the death's door, followed by a burly man who delivered multiple blows to the beast, yelling with every punch. Xiao Hao watched, amazed, as the man tore into the beast, his vigor visible to her, as the bunny girl wondered who this man was and why he was risking his life to fight the beast. Weirdly enough, the man who was supposedly more powerful than the Black Mountain warrior squashed the beast with his bare hands, ending its life, making the Soul Master conclude that this was a mismatched battle, and such a battle could only be won by a certain someone. But as she turned to look at that certain someone, he was missing from the carriage, much to her shock. The scene changed as Li Yunqi appeared in front of the orphanage, which was up in flames, and his friends slumped at the entrance. Bing Bing was sprawled on the ground, coughing, and Fei Lei was kneeling on the floor, regretfully unable to stop the beast or save Bing Bing. But Li Yunqi says nothing as he raises his fingers in Bing Bing's direction and shoots his healing technique on the being, making it stand up, bouncing like nothing ever happened. It stared, amazed as it realized that Li Yunqi had returned and was healing Fei Lei, and then the young man claimed that due to his negligence, they both were in danger, so the one who should be regretful instead. Just then, Director Sean approached Li Yunqi, his colleague, in his arms, asking if he could heal his fallen colleague and if he would do anything in return. But he shook his head, stating that he could only heal injuries, not revive the dead. Sean accepts, as the older man realizes that the warrior was only clinging to false hopes, as no one can return the dead. He placed his colleague on the front grounds of the orphanage as he bid farewell to them and told them not to reincarnate so soon or else he would not be able to join them. Behind him, Li Yunqi slowly approached him and said the prince might be unable to help his friends but could heal his injured hand. But Sean denied help, emotionally stating he brought 15 of his allies, but only he survived. Thus, the warrior was too ashamed to face their families if healed. Understanding him, Li Yunqi turned to face the others and expressed that more spirit beasts would be arriving in the next 30 days, and he would require their help in defeating them. Hearing this, Sean became suspicious of the young man's identity and demanded answers to whether he had any relations with the spirit beasts. Li Yunqi was, however, calm at the onslaught of accusations and ensured that although he could not divulge any further information, he requested that they trust him. But before anyone present could answer, a voice sounded behind them, claiming she trusted him. And the voice belonged to Danai, the guardian of the eastern border, a grade 5 mid-tier warrior. She explained that he was the one who aided her in defeating the Black Mountain warrior, and the female guardian had new information that he beat a spirit beast just before arriving here all alone. When he heard all this, Sean agreed to help Li Yunqi and asked him what he required. Li Yunqi replied that he needed 4 groups of people capable of defeating the spirit beasts. The strategy is surprising for everyone present as they all ponder over the future. Soon, they all were fending for their own devices. Xiao Hao was roasting a messenger chicken. The Guardian sisters had reunited Danai. asking about the well-being of her injured twin, and Bing Bing was snuggling with Lee Yunqi. In the middle of this, Shan asks Lee Yunqi what he wants them to do and what is happening. To this, Lee Yunqi responded that the explanation was quite long-winded, and all they needed to know was that they needed to power up if they wanted to defeat the incoming spirit beasts and put their faith in him. Shan said that he did and turned to leave in pursuit of more fighters, but he was stopped by the young man who said that they did not require anyone else to fight this battle for them. Hearing this, Shan turns and asks him what he has in mind. Danai then piques the conversation, asking whether Lee Yunqi meant them to. Director Shan and himself were enough, with Dabai quipping that they would have what it takes to defeat the beasts who were such formidable enemies. But he only excluded himself and said that he needed to figure out the details tomorrow and asked Fei Lei to create a group chat for them all, to which Fei Lei glumly agreed. Soon enough, the spiritual brothers were outside a skills shop where Lee Yunqi purchased 3 endoscopic eyes, a skill that allowed him to garner basic knowledge about any warrior's cultivation level. When he combined the 3, he gained the Eye of Clarity, a talent that indulged information about any warrior, ranging from their strengths to weaknesses. He planned on using this technique to strategize their war against the spirit beasts. Then he asks Fei Lei to gather everyone at his place and notices his blue mood. And upon asking, the red-haired young man replies that he is not sad but rather worried if he and Bing Bing would be of any substance regarding their war against the beasts. He was concerned that even their orphanage director could not match the beast, so how would he amount to anything with his measly cultivation? He was only alive because the beast played with him instead of ending him. But Lee Yunqi is extremely hopeful, as he told him to leave the fight to him and focus on the training, as he would help him cultivate, and patted his shoulder, reassuring him. But as he started walking forward, realized that he would use his Eye of Clarity on the people Lee Yunqi would be training, so he might as well try it now. Turning around, he looks at his brother, who playfully stole a lollipop from Bing Bing and activated the technique on Fei Lei. The eye revealed that Fei Lei was a grade 1 peak tier warrior with a minus potential, reigning from the Hope Orphanage, head of Delay Orphanage, second-year academy student. His strengths were that he owned rare explosive skills, stamina superior to average, and endurance, and his weaknesses were his low spiritual energy absorption rate, so he had difficulty raising his cultivation level. But much to his horror, the Eye of Clarity stripped the person completely. At the orphanage, Lee Yunqi stresses that they must collaborate and trust him completely to defeat the spirit beasts in the next 29 days. Shen was standing there ready to help, but he threatened that if Lee Yunqi tried to waste their time or energy, then there would be consequences. Then he offered to go first, but Lee Yunqi denied, claiming he would be the last to be inspected as the young man needed time to prepare. Hearing this, Danai offered herself to be the first volunteer, to which Lee Yunqi agreed and told Bing Bing to do what he promised. The promise was that Bing Bing would sit on Danai's lap to cover her modesty. That is when Lee Yunqi opened the Eye of Clarity, which stated the female guardian's credentials to be a grade 5 mid-tier warrior, regional guardian, elite warrior of the region, and potential B+. Her strengths were her innate affinity towards healing skills and powerful healing capabilities. Her weaknesses were that she works solo because of her strong-willed personality. She then gets off, and Bing Bing moves to the next sister. Her titles were Dabai Grade 5 Mid-Tier Warrior, Regional Guardian, Elite Warrior of the Region, and Potential B+. Her strengths were that her fighting skills included powerful poison techniques, she could instantly kill anyone, and she had long-lasting stamina. Her weakness was that her teammate tricked her once, so the Guardian had trust issues. Xiao Hao was standing behind all this, watching intently. She felt the whole charade to be useless. She had only stayed because he had promised one spirit beast as her egg warrior. He then turned to her and told Bing Bing to take his position. But as soon as Lee Yunqi unlocked the Eye of Clarity, he jumped from behind Bing Bing, laughing that she wouldn't follow his orders mindlessly. But unbeknownst to her, Xiao Hao had exposed herself completely to Lee Yunqi, who had now gotten red in his face from embarrassment. But her titles were that she was grade 6 mid-tier warrior, soul master, daughter of a rich family in the high-tier region, and potential S. Her strengths were that the little girl possessed the Black Mountain Warrior soul egg and another blank soul egg. Her weakness was that she was a below-average physically capable person. Thus, the bunny girl could only use her eggs briefly, and not use multiple eggs simultaneously. He let her go, not betraying any discomfort, and began to scan Bing Bing. Bing Bing was the Trent, grade 1 high-tier warrior. His strengths were that he was able to evolve differently from humans. and his weakness was his lack of intelligence. The last was Director Shan Dap Ao, and Li Yunqi squinted slightly to look at him. He was the director of a regional academy, elite warrior within the region. His strength was his physical capabilities, and his weakness was his inability to use his strengths, as he lacked different fighting skills. After all the scans were performed, they awaited further orders, and Li Yunqi told them he would be responsible for them for the next 29 days. He would seek and train them all individually, starting with Director Shen. However, Bing Bing was the only one to notice that Li Yunqi was slightly dazed. It was the wee hours of the morning. Li Yunqi and Director Shan stood in the crater the young prince had created with his lightning torrent. Shan had brought the requested food items and said they should start training now. Then he stepped down, claiming this hidden crater was a perfect spot to train, and he would do everything the young man asked for. But then he saw that Li Yunqi started removing his shirt and said that he had something to show to the director. This show made Shan need to understand, as the director thought that Li Yunqi wanted to perform dual cultivation with him, fearing that this wasn't something they should do together, even if the director could quickly increase his cultivation level through it. However, he was met with a dilemma because he wanted to defeat the spirit beasts no matter the cost. But to his immense relief, Li Yunqi had carved some sigils on his back for Shan to learn. He urged the director to learn them quickly because it was painful to keep the sigil up, and the director hurriedly zipped his clothes back to learn the symbol, amazed at this unorthodox method of learning fighting skills. After a while, Li Yunqi wore his shirt back and instructed Shan never to use this technique on humans, and to try it himself in this crater to understand the skill better. He continued that his cultivation skills would not cause any significant damage to the region around him. Hearing this, Shan was confused, as this punch was something first-year students learned at the academy, an ordinary Eastern straight punch. But Li Yunqi shook his head and said he would understand once he tried. The director relented and tried the punch, thinking the young man was not a fraud, as the warrior had done a background check. But as he swung his fist, he felt something he did not feel earlier, as if all the spiritual energy the man possessed channeled into the punch. He propelled his fist, unable to stop, and smashed through the hilltop, claiming it was simply energizing. But a setback to this sheer power was that he burned through his clothes and tore off his hand. This scene wasn't something Li Yunqi wished to see again, as he already had been exposed to Shan without his clothes once, making him flee the scene with Shan chasing him down to heal his hand. A while later, they sat down, having a meal, Li Yunqi sitting atop the truck and Shan sitting on the ground. The director was pleased with himself and confident he could protect his land and family. But as he sobered down, the older man asked Li Yunqi if the royal palace had sent him, to which Li Yunqi feigned innocence and claimed that he did not know what he was talking about. But Shan was not fooled, and said Li Yunqi appeared right after the first invasion incident, and as soon as he found out that the young man had defeated the Black Mountain warrior with his low-level cultivation, he knew that. Li Yunqi belonged to the independent unit of the royal palace, but the director told him not to worry, as the man would never let his identity out publicly. Then he continued that the public only knew that the palace could rule the globe, but what they didn't realize was that the royals also kept control over the villains to protect the mortals. So he stood up, folding his hands in humility, and thanked the young man. Li Yunqi was speechless at this gesture, so he stepped down from the truck and turned to leave, instructing Shan to train here and that he would come around each day to heal his hand. Also, he should prepare his left hand to increase his number of punches. Li Yunqi gathered the female guardian sisters at the orphanage to help them cultivate. When Danai inquired about his cultivation method, he clarified that they would be able to break through their cultivation if they all developed together. The insinuation was wrong in Dabai's mind. But Li Yunqi quickly explained that he meant trio cultivation. Hearing the word trio cultivation, Danai flustered, her cheeks flushed, and her heartbeat quickened. But she agreed, supposedly for the glory and protection of the people. Danai had detailed thoughts of the method in her mind, and her sister thought the same. Her face blushed in mortification as she scolded the young man for having such nefarious intentions toward them. But when she looked at her sister, she saw that the brunette contemplated cultivating the people's future. They should sacrifice whatever they could. Hearing this, the black-haired guardian also relented. But Li Yunqi saw through their hesitation and said that he could try something else. But before he could finish the sentence, Danai readily stopped him and said that they would do the trio cultivation. Seeing them accept the idea, he instructed them that they needed to warm up by regulating the temperature and humidity of the energy in their body. The trio then sat across each other in a triangle, their legs crossed as they meditated per his request. After a while, he finished the warm-up, much to Danai's surprise and disappointment, as she had imagined something completely different. The young prince said that he would transfuse some of his spiritual energy into them individually, as forcing a breakthrough would break their meridians, so that he would expand their meridians through his spiritual power. Danai is the first to volunteer as she starts to undress, much to Li Yunqi's confusion. In her mind, it was necessary to use skin-to-skin contact for spiritual transfusion. However, Li Yunqi explained that this was a tactic that ill-mannered men had used but was unnecessary. Flustered, she dressed back up and braced herself dramatically for the impact, which Li Yunqi cleared that the process wouldn't be painful. And much to her shock, the process was over before she realized she was making her suspicious. However, he does not explain this and does the transmission to her sister. After this, he expressed that he would now adjust the density of the spiritual energy in the room so they both should relax. Danai agreed, but now her passion has died down significantly, which her sister noticed, to which the brunette complained that Li Yunqi was not doing genuine trio cultivation. But Li Yunqi interrupted them and expressed that this step would be painful, so they should be prepared. And bitter it was, as such intense energy was being sent their way. Their pores exploded as the massive energy was being absorbed. The duo tried their best to withstand the sheer energy onslaught, but soon it became painful for them as they begged him to stop, but he refused, claiming they were so close to their breakthrough. And as the minutes progressed, the transfusion became unbearable for them as the room lit up with spiritual energy, and the girls began to yelp in pain. And just when they thought it was too much, they passed the cultivation level. The sheer power tore their clothes, and Danai slumped on her sister, passed out from exhaustion. Dabai also looked seconds away from passing out, worried they were exposed in front of a strange man. But Li Yunqi had no such thoughts as he draped a blanket over them and told them to wait out their exhaustion for the next hour, and he would stand outside the room waiting. An hour later, Dabai and her sister walked out of the room, and she apologized for her doubts and claimed that Dabai trusted him now. Li Yunqi was waiting for this moment, and when the guardian said she would do whatever he wanted, he instructed her to self-destruct. The female guardian was shocked to her core as she repeated his statement. Li Yunqi explained that to verify if her technique was strong enough to defeat the whole spirit clan, he reassured her that he would heal her just before she perished. Hearing this, she steeled herself and told her sister to step away. She instructs them both to stand back as she does not know the full extent of her destruction. Amazed, they both stepped back as Dabai commented that she had never seen her sister do that. Across from them, Dabai powered up as green lightning crackled around her. She chanted the venomous self-destruct spell and the ground shook and cracked around her. As the attack dispelled from within her, it created an emerald sphere around her that slowly encapsulated the region. When the poisonous globe reached the duo, Li Yunqi brought up his hand to touch the sphere, and his hand burned up on contact. He said the intensity was satisfactory, much to her sister's pleasure. The brunette sister then asked the young man how he would heal his hand, to which he used holy light and healed himself. As this was taking place, Dabai was slowly perishing as she realized what dying felt like. But to her horror, her sister and Li Yunqi ignored her as her condition gradually worsened. They were ambitiously discussing how to defeat the spirit beasts behind them, and Dabai began to bleed. As they continued talking, she grew increasingly anxious by the second, and she started to lose her sense of speech. Finally, Li Yunqi looked over and told her sister to proceed as planned and begin the healing. And he lets her know that if Danai can't heal both of them, she should know the consequences of dealing with the spirit clan. The younger sister nods, stripping her clothes into the poisonous sphere. But when Dabai figured out what her sister was doing, the elder sister started to back away to avoid hurting her because she could not heal two people at a time. This refusal ensued a chase between the two sisters, which resulted in Li Yunqi forcing the poisonous sister to stay in one place with his vines so that her sister could cure her. The healing sister then hugged her sister by her head, unleashing the controlled grade healing wave X2 just as she lost her sight. Outside the sphere, Li Yunqi had a blanket and his healing spell on standby, but then he realized that the attack wasn't necessary as the female guardian sister had succeeded. The sisters had both been healed, and the young man draped the blanket over them. Dabai sat up, draping herself with the blanket, and asked if he had planned to use her sister to heal her since the beginning, and if so, why didn't he tell her anything? Li Yunqi responded that she would never have agreed if she knew, as the guardian did not trust anyone, and thus kept everyone at a distance to protect herself and others. Flustered by his exposure, the female guardian denied the claims and scolded him for assuming things. Hearing this, Li Yunqi calmly walked away to meet Fei Lei when she stopped him again. But this time, the elder sister folded her hands to thank him for helping them exceed their cultivation level and even create a combo skill. But doing so made the blanket slip from her torso, exposing her unknowingly. The crude scenario made his nose bleed, which she assumed was a side effect of helping them. And that claim wasn't something he refuted and instructed them both to stay and train to perfect their combo skills, to which she agreed. As Lee Yunqi walked away, he wiped his nose, wondering why all the ordinary warriors rip their clothes whenever they use any technique. Back at the orphanage, Fei Lei had brought heavy exercise equipment to the high-tier cultivation area. He informed Lee Yunqi that he would train as he wished and do anything. Lee Yunqi responded that Fei Lei was already quite strong, and all he needed was to increase his cultivation level. Hearing this, the redhead agrees and asks him to start immediately. But then Lee Yunqi asks him to remove all his clothes from the bed and start immediately. A peculiar task that made Fei Lei stop in his tracks, baffled. As Fei Lei protested against his brother's outrageous demands, the arena boomed with his yells. Hearing this, Lee Yunqi expressed that he would cultivate with his brother, and the explosion in the result would rip all his clothes, so all Lee Yunqi wanted was to preserve his clothing. But Fei Lei was highly uncomfortable and refused to strip, claiming that the man would never explode, to which Lee Yunqi clarified that the warrior wouldn't explode, but his clothes would rip to shreds, so he should take them off. But then the young men were interrupted by Bing Bing, who had a suspicious packet containing a balloon he wanted to blow. But the men shooed him away. After that, Fei Lei sat crossed-legged and enforced that he would never strip and would rather die, so they might as well do this while he was clothed. Understanding his stance, Lee Yunqi relented and began the cultivation, and so they sat across from each other as their forms started to glow bright golden, as Lee Yunqi warned his brother that the procedure would be painful, so he should brace himself. But Fei Lei was not worried and asked Lee Yunqi to proceed as he wished. As the cultivation grew gradually, the redhead began to lose his clothes. Still, he was blissfully unaware as he claimed he was unafraid of anything, primarily pain and death. However, as he opened his eyes, he realized the situation, and Lee Yunqi once again warned him that even though this wouldn't kill him, the pain would be immense, and he should endure it. The procedure just made the body absorb spiritual energy despite the brain's defense system designed to regulate the energy flow. Lee Yunqi controlled massive amounts of it and forced Fei Lei's body to take it all to help rapidly exceed his cultivation level. But because of this, the procedure was highly agonizing, and the person would have felt like his bones were drilled all over. As intense as it was, Lee Yunqi was far from done as he asked his brother to brace himself because the worst was yet to come. Hearing this, the redhead began to cry tears of blood, begged him to stop this, and promised never to brag about anything again as he spewed blood all over. The procedure lasted 10 more minutes before finishing, resulting in an exhausted, sobbing Fei Lei wrapped in the blanket, to whom Lee Yunqi promised to help him until the end. But as quick as lightning, Fei Lei stood up and ran out of the room covered in the blanket as he refused to continue training. Seeing him escape, Lee Yunqi ordered Bing Bing to restrain the redhead onto the bed. He did, making the poor warrior grunt as he cursed the Trent. Lee Yunqi walked behind him to reassure him that it would only take a short time, and it did as soon Fei Lei was panting on the bed, his mood depressed and embarrassed as he asked to be left alone. Lee Yunqi commented how the others were ecstatic about gaining the breakthrough, but he was ultimately the opposite. Lee Yunqi, however, limped off the bed and gestured to Bing Bing that it was time for him to evolve. Hearing this, Fei Lei sprung up from the bed. His previous exhaustion had seemingly disappeared as he became excited to see Bing Bing develop. Lee Yunqi then offers him a golden pill that Bing Bing's boss had left when he was defeated. The Trent immediately recognized the tablet his boss used in a foot bath. Fei Lei was pettily happy to hear this, as he finally saw this as revenge for Bing Bing's behavior against him earlier. But when he swallowed the pill, it was pleasantly sweet, increasing his cultivation to grade 1 peak-tier warrior. He asked for more, but Lee Yunqi refused and instructed him to consume the tablets in moderation, lest they suffer any consequences. But to the redhead's dismay, the effects were as insignificant as a stomachache. But Fei Lei was not disappointed for long as he claimed that his suffering was great, so he reaped more benefits, so Bing Bing should not suffer. But before he could finish expressing his thoughts, Bing Bing began to glow, making Fei Lei worried about him possibly exploding. But to their surprise, Bing Bing transformed into a little girl, the grade 3 peak-tier warrior cultivation. Lee Yunqi is, however, wasting no time as Bing Bing's cultivation level was incorrect, so the transformation would only last an hour. He then instructed them to scout the forest for the next few days to gather the locations of all the bigger trents. He then started to leave to pick up some medicine and equipment, not before ordering Fei Lei to meet him each afternoon to train, as his cultivation was still relatively low and required extensive training. The redhead heard this and despondently crawled into his bed. A while later, Li Yunqi was in a grove as he explained to someone his excuse for being late. The person he was explaining to was Xiao Hao, who was eating fruits. She calmly warned him that she would end him if he didn't do as he promised and gave him a high-tier spirit beast as an egg warrior. Weirded out slightly, Li Yunqi nodded and told her to start the training. After realizing the strengths and weaknesses of Xiao Hao, Li Yunqi devised a workout routine that would help her build strength to fight her enemies. But Xiao Hao didn't think she needed to work out. As Li Yunqi presented her with the routine he had crafted especially for her, she couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief washed over her. After all, she was a grade 6 soul egg master. Indeed, she was capable of much more than what he had laid out before her. Enraged, she marched towards Li Yunqi and took the barbell from his hand, trying to show him she was more substantial than he thought. When Li Yunqi released his grip, Xiao Hao fell straight to the ground. She still didn't want to accept that it was because of her low strength. As she lay there struggling to rise, she couldn't help but cast blame on Li Yunqi for her current situation. Despite her best efforts, she failed miserably in her attempt to stand. Li Yunqi stood and watched her as she struggled to get up, as he had never seen someone this weak before. After she succeeded, she came straight to Li Yunqi and screamed at him for being misogynistic and expecting a girl to lift weights. She demanded that he test her abilities with something else, which was exactly what he did. He told her to lie on the ground and grab her feet. He then asked her to move her upper body toward him. Xiao Hao tried her best to do what he told her to do, but she couldn't. Her body felt weak and she gave up. At this point, Li Yunqi was convinced that she ordered her soul eggs to carry her around since she was literally so weak. Xiao Hao couldn't bear the humiliation and decided to quit. Before she could take another step, Li Yunqi called her back and told her that if she tried to leave, he would tell everyone that she had defeated the king of the Black Mountains and become a hero. Secondly, she was the one who attacked Danai with the king of the Black Mountains, and if the word got out, the related group might beat her to death. Xiao Hao's eyes blazed with fury as she listened to his menacing words. Without a moment's hesitation, she commanded the king of the Black Mountains to teach him a lesson he would never forget. With a swift motion, Li Yunqi unleashed his rolling ball cannon punch, striking the king of the Black Mountains with a powerful blow. The force of the punch sent the king of the Black Mountains hurtling through the air, unable to withstand the power of Li Yunqi's attack. After knocking down the king of the Black Mountain, Li Yunqi turned to Xiao Hao and promised her that if she helped him, he would ensure she got the high-tier member of the Spirit Clan as her soul egg. This deal was quite tempting for her as she desperately needed to increase her soul egg collection. She got a sudden boost of motivation and did everything Li Yunqi had told her to do. After a while, she got exhausted and started questioning herself as if this was enough, since she wasn't able to see her progress. But Li Yunqi assured her that she had made significant progress and told Xiao Hao to look at her soul egg. To her surprise, the king of the Black Mountains had grown significantly. Xiao Hao's eyes started to glisten as she wondered about the possibilities now that her soul egg had become more robust. She assumed that she didn't need to work out anymore, but her fantasy was shattered when Li Yunqi told her otherwise. Even though her soul egg had gained immense strength in such a short time, she still needed to work to achieve more, as she needed to ensure a 99% chance of defeating the Spirit Clan. Meanwhile, the portal between the spirit world and the human world had been opened in the spirit realm. The king had ordered the members to enter the mortal realm with a restricted number to launch attacks. As murmurs of disapproval began to spread among the members, a figure of authority suddenly appeared. It was a high-tier member, feared and respected by all. Without a word, the high-tier member swiftly eliminated the dissenter who dared to criticize their king, as the orders from the king cannot be questioned. Once every century, the seal binding the Spirit Clan would weaken, unleashing chaos upon the human world. The world's weight rested heavily on the shoulders of the Eastern God as they took on the difficult task of eradicating the growing danger that loomed over humanity. As the battles raged on, it became clear to him that his team needed to be more effective. They lacked the strength and skill necessary to emerge victorious. It was a daunting challenge that he knew they must face head-on. Therefore, his team needed to become more effective and stronger in fighting. They needed to transform themselves within the time limit of 30 days, as after that, the seal would break and all hell would break loose. As time passed, the team members dedicated themselves to rigorous training, determined to surpass their own limitations. They pushed themselves to the brink of exhaustion, enduring the physical pain that came with their intense efforts. Still, it wasn't enough. Each day, they trained to achieve either a higher grade or skills that would help them in their battle against the Spirit Clan. Some of them were successful, while some ended up brutally injured and needed to be healed by the Holy Light, which only was the unique skill of Li Yanqi. Li Yanqi helped his fellows achieve greater strength and rank as he didn't want to lose this battle. His disciples Li Feilei, Ah Bing, and Xiao Hao were working hard. They followed Li Yunqi's instructions as they knew it was for their own good. As the day of the battle came closer, everyone had managed to achieve their desired rank and skills. Li Feilei and Ah Bing rushed toward Li Yanqi to update him on their progress. He suggested that they rest for the remaining 2 days so that they'll recover, and when the time came, he would send the members of the Spirit Clan towards them. As much as Xiao Hao despised Li Yunqi, she couldn't help but wonder why Li Yanqi's cultivation level remained the same when all of them managed to get higher on their level. She doubted his plan, but then reminded herself that she didn't need to worry about him. 1 day remained before the arrival of the Spirit Clan. Li Yanqi had started summoning and manifesting his spells to ensure the highest possible outcome. He was aware of his duties and felt the weight of his responsibilities heavy on his shoulders, knowing that the fate of his family and all of humanity rested on his success. He knew that he had only one chance to eradicate the threat completely, and he was determined to seize it. The day finally came when the seal was broken completely. It was time. The Spirit Clan started moving according to the king's decree to slay the humans once again. But little did they know they were about to meet their biggest enemy, who had been eagerly waiting for their arrival. As the Spirit Clan made their way through the portal, each of them was greeted by someone who had waited a long time to meet them. It was Li Yunqi who had been keeping guard at the gateway. One by one, they started to come out of the portal, but Li Yunqi was ready. He threw them using his rolling cannonball skill. No matter where they landed after entering, Li Yunqi would find them and throw them in another direction. His technique was making the Spirit Clan members confused. They were not able to understand his motive behind using such a strange skill that was not killing them. Little did they know that destruction awaited them. Suddenly, Li Yunqi heard a great bang, and out came the strongest warrior of the Spirit Clan. The warrior expressed his excitement to set foot in the human realm again after a long time as soon as he came. The other clan member quickly came to report the disappearing injured eye and making him disoriented. Xiao Hao and Ah Bing had now entered the scene, and they declared that they'd only be aiming for the member's injured eye, so he should brace himself. Strangely enough, Li Feilei had brought a cannon gun, a gun that shot Ah Bing instead of cannonballs. The members got bewildered by Li Feilei's strategy. He just knew he had to protect his eye from getting hit by Ah Bing cannonball because it wouldn't be good if he didn't. He conjured up a shield using all his spiritual energy and braced himself for the impact. Ah Bing was moving towards him with lightning speed. Seconds after, they collided, but not on his eye. It was on his abdomen. Meanwhile, Li Yunqi and the warrior were facing each other when the warrior felt the impact on one of his members. He told Li Yunqi that he must be feeling great, since it was just the beginning, and his allies had managed to take down one of their members, but he missed something important. Whenever his members got hit, the warrior would gain spiritual energy and become stronger. He suggested they also start their battle. Li Yunqi was confident in himself and agreed. Li Yunqi took a deep breath, and then, without wasting a second, he charged at him. As the war against the Spirit Clan raged on, it was finally time for the Eastern God to step forward and join the fight. He had planned out every move according to which he would make use of only half of his spiritual energy at the beginning of the fight. Once his opponent let his guard down, he would strike with his full strength, and if the Eastern God died, the explosive in the car would go off, leveling the entire place. But the priority was to kill the Spirit Clan instead of dying. As soon as the Spirit Clan member launched his deadliest attack, the Eastern God decided to put his strategy to use, and with only half spiritual energy, he struck the clan member with the fist of the Eastern God. The attack weakened the Spirit Clan member. Blood splattered from his mouth, hitting the ground with a thud, and gradually vanished from sight. The Eastern God couldn't believe he could kill a Spirit Clan member with only half his strength. Later he realized that it was all because of Li Yunqi, who had helped them get stronger over the past few days using his royal family's techniques. If it were not for him, the entire eastern region would have been done for. On the other hand, the twin sisters were in combat with another Spirit Clan member when the member received the news that 2 of them had already died, and it was just the beginning. He immediately knew these fighters couldn't be underestimated and decided to use his ultimate skill immediately. However, to his dismay, his attack failed to make the impact he had hoped for. The twin sisters had trapped him inside their poisonous bubble, and within a few seconds, the Spirit Clan member vanished. The sister knew their spell worked thanks to Li Yunqi's help, which had increased their capabilities. Otherwise, they would have been dead by now. The news of the death of the Spirit Clan member traveled fast and reached the one facing Xiao Hao. The members now needed answers about how this region had got such powerful fighters. He assumed Xiao Hao must be one of them and made a run for his boss, who could protect him. But it was too late. Xiao Hao ordered the king of the Black Mountains to attack him, and he crushed the Spirit Clan member with one swift blow. Xiao Hao was satisfied with her kill, but soon realized that Li Yunqi was also fighting one, and he promised to help her gain a high-tier Spirit Clan soul egg. If he killed his opponent, she wouldn't be able to gain her soul egg. The thought worried her, and she rushed toward Li Yunqi to stop him from killing his opponent, whereas Li Yunqi was on the ground, injured from the attacks of the Great Spirit Clan warrior. The warrior knew the only reason Li Yunqi was alive right now was his healing skills, which protected him from the attacks. He also knew that Li Yunqi could have defeated him in the beginning, but wondered why he dragged the fight this much when now, because of his members, he had gained twice their spiritual powers and had become even stronger. Li Yunqi hadn't given up just yet. He told the warrior to come at him with all his powers, but the warrior held back. Because if he unleashed his spiritual power, the region would be destroyed, and he didn't want to destroy something that his king had desired for such a long time. Li Yunqi used his lightning torrent on him to tempt him. Furthermore, he revealed that he was one of the 3 sons of the royal family, and this skill was proof that he belonged to the royal bloodline, since it was a unique skill only royal family members possessed. After hearing this, the warrior was able to make sense of how the low-tiered members were able to defeat the members of the Spirit Clan just now. The warrior had orders from the king to kill members of the royal family at once if they ever came across them, and that's precisely what he was about to do. Li Yunqi knew he could not take the warrior at his current cultivation level, but he also knew his duties. It was his destiny to defeat the enemies of humankind. Previously, when Li Yunqi revealed his identity, being one of the 3 princes, the warrior was infuriated and enraged. He revealed the great plans the Spirit King of the Spirit Clan issued. The warrior started bombarding his rapid attacks on Li Yunqi. Li Yunqi did not retreat but faced the Spirit Clan's warrior ahead. Withstanding, he stood no chance. He was at a disadvantage in light of his cultivation level being low. As Li Yunqi contemplated having insignificant spiritual energy compared to the warrior, he firmly believed that being slow counted as a vulnerability for the enemy. He wanted to believe he could win this fight. In a flash, the warrior of the Spirit Clan threw his fist at Li Yunqi. Li Yunqi was rejoicing over the fact that such simplistic attacks from the enemy left him unscathed, and they meant no harm. So he gathered his spiritual energy to make his rounds of lightning torrent bursts at the warrior. However, what he didn't expect was the armor's strength and its resistance to his attack, backfiring at Li Yunqi himself. Li Yunqi spurted out blood at the fact that his skills still lack in the face of the enemy's sturdy armor. He realized it would be difficult to get through the warrior's armor due to the dense spiritual energy surrounding him. The combatant then prepared for the next round and gave his best shot at Li Yunqi. Li Yunqi barely managed to dodge the attack as he went around by changing his strategy to crumble the armor through another method. He grappled for the armor with his binding rope technique, but the Spirit Clan warrior had caught on quickly to his ideas. The enemy burned Li Yunqi's tree ropes around his armor and mocked him for his poor fighting skills. Despite being in a difficult position, Li Yunqi arduously endured and did not tremble in fear. He launched his Trent hammer attack on the warrior and decided to change his strategy to crumble the Spirit Clan warrior armor from the inside. It was one of his strongest attacks. The battling grounds quaked, howling dust particles around the area due to heavy shockwaves produced from a single hammer strike. Nevertheless, the enemy stood in the same place, not moving an inch from its place. The Spirit Clan warrior smirked while facing Li Yunqi. He bragged that all of Li Yunqi's attacks were equivalent to being useless. He revealed that Spirit Clan soldiers have trained to resist the 3 elements of fire, lightning, and corrosion to such an extent that it's impossible to damage them in any way. Li Yunqi believed in his fighting stamina and claimed that he'd win with his abilities if he kept fighting without giving up. The Spirit Clan warrior started gathering all his spiritual energy in one of his arms. He planned to throw a single punch and wreak havoc on the human habitation and dwellings behind him. It was simply because the enemy wanted to harm the humans and provoke Li Yunqi simultaneously. Li Yunqi felt abhorrent towards the evil machinations of the enemy. As time was scarce to think over his next move, Li Yunqi instantly shifted his body in the direction where the attack landed. He took the heavy blow by himself, all bruised and battered. The enemy commander mocked his bravery, thinking his life for the human souls meant nothing to the Spirit Clan. However, this was a kind of humiliation that Li Yunqi ignited his fiery soul to fight more fiercely. On the other side of the battling grounds, two people viewed the battle as their source of entertainment. They were introduced as non-mass-produced Little E and Absolute Rock. One of them assumed the second prince would die anytime soon, fighting the Spirit Clan. They wanted to save him when Li Yunqi's chances of forfeiting reached a maximum of 100%. Another important but vague detail described by the third party was a ritual being completed if the second prince was sacrificed during the battle. However, the unknown man claims to protect him from danger as he shares a relationship with Li Yunqi's elder brother. In the midst of their chatter, they noticed another strong spiritual presence approaching the two people engaged in the battle. The scene shifts to Li Yunqi and the Spirit Clan's warrior being interrupted. Suddenly, Xiao Hao appeared by shouting about her skills in the Black Mountain's shadowless kick. Li Yunqi was caught off guard due to the sudden reinforcement. The enemy met with an unexpected attack from Xiao Hao. She turns to Li Yunqi immediately by yelling at him for taking the high-tier Spirit Clan enemy for himself. Li Yunqi questioned her sudden interruption. Xiao Hao immediately disclosed her purpose of procuring the soul egg which she so firmly desires. The whole scene presented a once-in-a-lifetime chance for her. Suddenly, realization dawned upon her over Li Yunqi's physical appearance. She speculatively asks if he was acting to make a fool out of her being a weakling. Unfortunately, Li Yunqi proved he was not pretending this time. He was fighting with all his might. She finished her bouts of interrogation and prepared herself to face the real enemy in front of them. Xiao Hao, with an arrogant look, prepares to advance ahead. Xiao Hao aggressively began to activate her skills as she advanced toward the enemy from the Spirit Clan. She ordered the king of the Black Mountain to kill him. But to her surprise, the attack did not damage his foe. The warrior simply knocked out the king of the Black Mountain with a punch and removed the pebble obstructing his path. Despite Xiao Hao's confusing state, Li Yunqi interrupted her train of thought. He sprinted to assist her at the main juncture while devising a plan to defeat the enemy at hand. Li Yunqi was determined to win no matter what. Meanwhile, the Spirit Clan commander laughed at their misery. He stated that Spirit Clan members are superior in strength, despite Xiao Hao possessing a similar cultivation level to his. He expressed his killing intent by threatening Li Yunqi by extinguishing Xiao Hao's life. The bunny, amidst the crisis, donned as a damsel in distress, crying over her misery and fate, hoping to be saved by Li Yunqi. She noticed it was inevitable to avoid the hit when the Spirit Clan commander reached her. She stood frozen in place when the king of the Black Mountain leaped forward to save his master from the attack. Xiao Hao reminds Black Mountain to return to its soul egg, or it might die trying to save her in this battle. Xiao Hao felt distressed over her familiar's defeated state. The battle escalated, and Xiao Hao yelled at Li Yunqi to perform a frontal attack on the enemy. Li Yunqi deceptively proceeded to the forefront, leaning for a critical blow. As he hovered in midair, recalling a memory during his training period of 30 days with Li Feilei, where Li Feilei schemed a strategy to triumph over the Spirit Clan by instigating their killer combo technique, he suggested bluffing and hitting the eyes. It can be a false alarm which can unquestionably help them win. This way, they can land their attacks somewhere else while bluffing. Li Yunqi returned to his senses. In the crucial moment, he focused all of his spiritual energy on his fist and decisively struck the center of the eyes of the Spirit Clan commander. His fierce punch blasted the enemy's head, creating a severe battlefield impact. The final spirit warrior from the spirit realm finally started to panic regarding his entire condition after the plethora of attacks he just received as his brain began to shrink. Meanwhile, Li Yunqi thought that was the final nail in the coffin. But the warrior had other plans. With his final attack, he planned to wipe out the humans in the vicinity. But then an explosion occurred nearby, and the wind started to blow. Then Li Yunqi reminded him of the warrior's 4 dead companions, and that they would accompany him on his way to hell, such that none of the humans in the nearby locality would be affected by that monster. The spirit warrior didn't pay heed to him and went ahead with his plan. Thus, he imprinted a summoning seal on the ground with full intentions of using it, and threatened Li Yunqi that they would definitely annihilate everything in their sight the next time the Spirit Clan came. But within that instance, Li Yunqi transferred the seal to his body while asking if the clan was after Li Yunqi. They should pursue him solely and not go after other people. As this conversation continued, Xiao Hao finally made her wish come true. She got the Spirit Realm warrior as her own servant by turning him into a soul egg ball. Her face gleamed with joy and a perfect smile as she obtained a high-tier warrior in her arsenal. Li Yunqi looked at her with a straight face. Although bruised and battered, Xiao Hao tried to justify her actions as she said that he promised to help her with her tasks, alongside taking half of the credits in the warrior's defeat. The very next second, she suddenly glanced at her hand to see a blue illuminated tattoo on her hand and started to praise it. She looked at Li Yunqi's hand and asked him that why does he have it too, in a rather gloomy tone. Li Yunqi cautioned her that it was a location marker and that the Spirit Clan would reappear in the future. Still, they'd be much more robust, with warriors having even higher tiers than the ones they fought. And then he made the dreadful comment that both are on the Spirit Clan's top hit list now. Xiao Hao couldn't take this news suddenly and started panicking while hitting the injured hero as he began to puke blood while she ranted and hurled curses and death threats at him. Meanwhile, on another land, the other prince saw what was happening. Although the servants raised some concern, the other prince said to relax, as peace would prevail for the time being. Back at Li Yunqi's side, he fainted, and the Xiao Hao now put him in her carriage and pulled it. Although the pulling chore was of the Black King of the mountain, she was absolutely fuming doing this, as her servant wasn't available to do this work. She brought Li Yunqi back to the orphanage 3 days later. Ah Bing saw her first, and seeing Xiao Hao move on her own for the first time, he was ecstatic. This angered Xiao Hao even more, and from the side, Fei Lei showed up, saying that food is ready and get the others to eat it. Meanwhile, at the hospital, a random man sits beside his injured son, waiting eagerly for him to wake up so he can introduce a man he met from the royal palace. And at a high-tier cultivation area, Danai is zoning out, while Dabai insists that she should go and visit Li Yunqi if she's fallen that badly for him. Cutting to the location of Li Yunqi, he finally wakes up in his bed, all concerned about the near future, as after that fateful battle, the Spirit Clan now knew about the strengths and weaknesses of the warriors who defeated them. At the Delay orphanage, Li Yunqi is concerned that not only the family's fighting skills were leaked, but also the skills that he learned over time were leaked as well. But he shunned it by saying that it doesn't matter as he intended to learn everything anyways. However, after everything happened, he was still tense that this place would not be able to withstand the next Spirit Clan attack, as no one could predict when they would attack, and that the school life he wanted to live never even started. But for the safety of others and for the future strategies, he decided to leave for higher tier area. After some time, he informed everyone that they were leaving for a higher tier area. Ah Bing and Fei Lei asked for some time to prepare for the departure. Li Yunqi called Dao Pao to do him a favor, and he promised Li Yunqi that the orphanage was now under the protection of the academy, and specifically, Dao Pao himself. Now Dao Pao approached Li Yunqi, brought the academy's graduation badges to him, and told him that he doesn't need to take exams anymore, as these badges would compensate for any course he would like to enroll in. Curious, Li Yunqi asked him why the badges were even required in the first place if he was leaving. Then Dao Pao briefed him that the portal that connects the high-tier area and their current location was closed. Hence, possessing a badge was one of the 2 prerequisites for opening it. Li Yunqi was confused regarding this information and asked why it was so hard to go up from the bottom. But more importantly, it was the other condition, so he asked it right away. Dao Pao told him that it was to compete against a warrior from the flat-tier area and that he would have to win at least 3 out of the 4 rounds of that duel to cross into the high-tier area. These measures are of utmost importance to prevent others from entering through the back doors, primarily to protect people from the lower tiers, as they might get hurt in the process. He then proceeded to explain how a wealthy merchant used his money and connections to send his children to the high tier, but in the end, he couldn't withstand the spiritual energy of that realm. Under extreme pressure, he exploded on the streets. But the high tier area was just like that as many people feared it, and only a few wanted to go there, and it would be considered a lot if 1 person out of 10,000 wished to visit that place. Although that area has a lot of highly dense spiritual energy, the best way to utilize it would be to cultivate energy there. Albeit in any case, all such areas are established upon spiritual veins, not being affected by humans or the land's topography. And as such, many academies were built in underground cemeteries or maybe at the top of tall towers, even eerier being an academy, a castle that only appeared at night. Dao Pao didn't want Li Yunqi to leave so soon, but since the world was going through dreadful times, actions had to be taken by the hero to continue his excellent work. And on the very next day, Lee Yunqi reached the high-tier area. Dabai asked Danai why didn't she leave with him, with her justifying that the team was already completed and that she'd be nothing more than an abandoned dog with the group. Dabai let it through as mere nonsense her mouth. But she really wanted to graduate from the flat-tier area first to get into the high-tier area. Lee Yunqi would definitely get into that area really soon, so her Danai and Lee Yunqi would get to meet each other very soon then. Although their plan was all set, they had also sworn to protect the eastern region. Then she addressed Danai that Li Feilei and Ah Bing were residents of the eastern region, so they couldn't be left undefended, and they rushed to their side. Meanwhile, in front of the portal to the higher-tier area, a man awaited the graduates from the eastern region as they could now head to the high-tier area. But he wanted not to act cocky, as those who wanted to become better would not be pushovers, but they reassured themselves that they were stronger against their foes, at the same time looking at their lineup for potential enemies. And suddenly, the red-haired enemy goes with full charisma that he would fight them with everything he got and not let himself down. Lee Yunqi and his fellows had arrived at the portal between two regions. Standing before the magnificent portal and admiring its beauty, they heard a voice from behind. They turned to find a man standing before them who greeted them and expressed his excitement to meet them. Then he introduced himself as the graduate from the forest area. He and his team were waiting there to fight against the team from the eastern region. The competition was about to start. The announcer introduced the rules, according to which both teams were to engage in a one-on-one battle with each other. The first team to win the 3 rounds would be eligible to enter the next region. During the war, if any ally entered the ring or the contestant left the ring, both would be considered fouls. The rules were evident to all, and the teams were eager to engage in the battle and win. The first round of the competition had begun. First up from the eastern region was Xiao Hao, and from the forest area, a handsome competitor had stepped in the ring. As soon as he stepped inside the circle, he tried to win over Xiao Hao with his charm, but Xiao Hao was not falling into his trap. Instead, she was enraged and unleashed her soul egg, the king of Black Mountains, on him. The other team was astonished as they had not expected to see a soul master in the battle. The handsome competitor was on the ground and told Xiao Hao that he would be grateful to die by her hands. His cheesy comments made Xiao Hao sick, and she ordered her soul egg to kill him. Her soul egg charged at him, beating him continuously, but the opponent didn't try to protect himself. That's when Lee Yunqi noticed that something was wrong. As the king of the Black Mountain was beating him up, the forest area's team members got worried that they might lose the first round, but the masked guy from the team told them that they didn't have to worry. He explained that they might have lost if their member was met with an opponent that was a man, but they were lucky as his opponent was a girl. In order to win, he made himself fall in love with Xiao Hao before the match, which activated his unique fighting skill, Puppy Love. The damage he suffered when attacked by someone he loved would give him a temporary power boost. Shortly after, that's precisely what happened. He transformed and attacked the soul egg, smashing him in one blow. The opponent looked at Xiao Hao and told her to admit defeat since he didn't want to hurt her. But Xiao Hao didn't want to admit defeat. She was about to release her second soul egg when Lee Yunqi stepped inside and stopped her. Lee Yunqi's interference had resulted in a foul. Thus, the eastern region lost the first round. This made Xiao Hao infuriated, and she started blaming Lee Yunqi for her defeat. But Lee Yunqi assured her that they would win the remaining matches no matter what. The second round commenced, and it was now Lee Yunqi's turn to fight. The leader of the forest area team stepped inside, and to his surprise, he was the guy they met earlier. The leader seemed excited to fight Lee Yunqi, as he assumed he was the strongest. Lee Yunqi's team members were busy strategizing for their battles, whereas Xiao Hao was still furious at him. As the leader saw how Lee Yunqi's team behaved, he knew they were not worried about him as they believed in his abilities. The forest area's team members were also confident in their leader's abilities. They knew his intimidating presence was enough to put his opponent under pressure. But that was not the case, as Lee Yunqi was not fazed by his intimidating aura. Instead, he thought of the attacks he would use in the fight. Since all the skills he had were too powerful for a human, as he was submerged in his thoughts, his opponent made his move. He rushed towards him with lightning speed and started circling around Lee Yunqi, trying to get under his skin, and when he got the chance, he stroked Lee Yunqi. The battle for securing the prestigious high tier had already started. Lee Yunqi was ambushed by the leader from the forest area group. He tried to intimidate him, but Lee Yunqi was not startled. His opponent tripped over his foot, but to hide his embarrassment, he got up and challenged Lee Yunqi to attack him. Since he struck first, he He thought mighty of himself for allowing Li Yunqi to take him down. Li Yunqi thought of his skills. He had nothing to use on humans. Every skill he possessed could end up killing him. His opponent bragged about defense being his actual trump card. Li Yunqi thanked him for being such a decent guy and allowing him to attack. His opponent got ready for the worst. Li Yunqi summoned up the rolling cannonball spell and aimed it at his opponent, which was the weakest fighting skill he had up his sleeve. His opponent got furious, and the opponent's group members were able to get the gist of Li Yunqi's attack strategy. He used this skill to break down his opponent mentally, and he succeeded in doing so since his opponent's ego had been hurt. The opponent ended up leaving the ring because he thought Li Yunqi didn't respect his grade or powers enough to use complex and powerful spells. According to the rules, this resulted in the victory of the Eastern region. However, the opponent didn't accept his defeat. He still congratulated them for their first victory and wished them well for the next round as he had faith in his remaining contestants. Li Yunqi smiled at him and expected the same from him. He looked over at his remaining contestants and started doubting himself. The third round was about to start, and the contestant had to fill their positions. Lei Fei stepped up from the East region and called the masked guy from the forest area. He refused to go up against him, and the leader started bashing him teammate for declining the offer. But the masked guy was able to see through Li Fei's strategy. Li Fei knew that the masked guy was the strongest among them and challenged him to fight so that he can lose. And Trent can go against Little Monkey as they saw him as the weakest link. By doing that, they were planning to secure their place and get this match to tie. The forest area team instead sent Little Monkey to fight against Li Fei. He looked at Little Monkey and started to mock him. Little Monkey challenged Li Fei to fight him like a true man and do his best. He took out his chains and suggested they chain their legs together until one of them surrenders. Li Fei agreed to his demand, but this was a mistake. Little Monkey's only weakness was his lower body, hence his speed. Chaining himself to his opponent eliminated the speed factor, and his unique fighting skill was his strength, which any amount of training couldn't surpass. Little Monkey transforms into the golden ape form. Li Fei's eyes widen as he looks up at him, standing tall above him 10 times his size. At that moment, he wonders if he has made the right choice, or if he will end up dying. Xiao Hao's former opponent continuously provoked her. She didn't seem to be fond of his fighting skills. Meanwhile, the forest area leader was busy cheering his fellow. The masked guy was not fond of his leader's attitude. After seeing the sudden change in the match, Li Yunqi started to wonder if Li Fei would win this round. The possibilities seemed slim. In the ring, Li Fei faced the humongous ape. His face went pale as he didn't expect this turn of events. The monkey threw a dominant punch at Li Fei, smashing him into the ground. Little Monkey's teammates thought that they had already won after seeing the intensity of the punch. But to their surprise, Fei took the damage quite well. He called out his opponent for being weak and smashed his face with a bomber punch, flexing that he had used only 9% of his strength in this punch. His opponent got annoyed and threw another punch in his face. This punch battle went on for quite some time. With each turn, they both kept decreasing their strength percentage to appear the strongest. But in reality, they both had been using their full power all this time. The forest area leader and Trent from the East region cheered their brothers for using only 1% of their strengths, while Li Yunqi and the masked guy despised them for being so childish. The masked guy was confident that his brother was more potent than his opponent, and that they would surely win the match. In the ring, Li Fei lay on the ground covered in blood. Monkey admired his ability to fight as a man, but disgraced him for lying on the ground, as true men don't give up so easily. The last one standing should be a true macho man. Li Fei called him out for being shallow and for not knowing the true meaning of a macho man. The monkey felt insulted. He asked him then what he thought a true man was. Li Fei told him he was out of energy and lured him close to himself when bang, he threw a ball-bustling volleyball punch in his groin. Monkey didn't expect this move. His eyes teared up, and he fell on the ground screaming in excruciating pain, calling him a menace for playing such a cheap trick. Li Fei explained that his brother needed him to win. Even if he had to sacrifice himself or use a cheap trick, he would do it. And that's what a true macho man does. He told Monkey to admit his defeat or else he would throw another punch at him. But Monkey refused to admit defeat. Li Fei had no choice but to throw his last punch to end this match. But suddenly the masked guy stood before Monkey, protecting him from the deadly punch. As a result of breaking the rules, the forest area lost another match. Li Fei noticed the speed of the masked guy, and he knew he possessed great power. The masked guy challenged Li Fei to a fight in the next round to avenge Monkey's defeat. But Li Feilei wasn't supposed to fight him in the next round, as his opponent will be Ah Bing. In the final round, Trent faced the masked guy in a duel. He seemed like a no match for the abilities and power of the masked guy. Before starting, Trent took a transformation pill tea to transform himself. His opponent wasn't surprised. He assumed something like that would happen judging from the past matches. He accepted his new form, but he warned him that he wouldn't be able to endure his transformational power. He then started to transform himself into a demon whose wings were pitch black with red blood eyes. Looking at his transformation, the leader of the forest area yelled at him to take it a notch down since it was just a competition, but his demonic side started to take over. He craved destruction and chaos, and nothing seemed to stop him from achieving his desires. The leader yelled in urgency. He called everyone for help. They had to stop him before he went berserk, or else they would all be in danger. But the chaos seemed to halt when a crackle of light was heard. It was Ah Bing. He used her skill, which took him down in a split second, and he fell on the ground, unable to move. He then grabbed his feet and threw him out of the ring, disqualifying him from the match. The leader was in shock. He couldn't accept that the little Ah Bing had defeated him so quickly, and they had lost. East Region had won, and the portal between regions started to activate. Li Yunqi tried using his holy light on the injured members of the forest area, but the skill didn't work. He wasn't sure why. Xiao Hao explained that it was a region-specified skill that could be used in the specified area. If used outside the region, the skill won't work. The leader of the forest area ran towards the doctor to ask him about his members. He assured him that they would be all right. The announcement told them the portal had been activated. The qualified persons could now pass through it, and the portal would reopen after a month. The leader came to Li Yunqi to bid him farewell. He acknowledged his powers and congratulated him for his promotion to the high-tier area. Furthermore, he stressed the need to have a duel with him after a month when the portal reopens. Xiao Hao and his opponent had an unpleasant encounter once again. Monkey also challenged Li Feilei for another fight after a month to retrieve the title of the true man. Trent felt terrible and went to say goodbye to his opponent as well, but he lay still, unable to move. The forest area members said their last goodbyes and went on their way. Li Yunqi and his team faced the gates by passing into the high-tier area to start their new journey. On the way back to the forest area, the leader appeared delighted. Monkey asked him why he was beaming even after they failed to defeat their opponents, to which the leader replied that now he knew some people possessed more power and strength compared to them, which gave him a purpose and motive for his life again. He started fantasizing about his life as the protagonist who left his village and met a formidable enemy on his journey to become stronger. Little Monkey did not like his attitude and ideas. He deeply despised them for attacking him with cheap tricks. He worried for his wife and lovers who awaited him in the village. His fellow members started to get annoyed at Little Monkey for having a wife among all of them. He got jealous and envied him. He wanted to marry Xiao Hao, but she left him. He decided to work on himself and become better for Xiao Hao by asking her hand for marriage. The leader rolled his eyes. He had heard this sentence 1,000,000 times since falling in love with every girl he met. His fellow tripped and rolled off from the carriage into the lawn when he noticed a tall figure standing over him. He recognized the figure. It was a member of the Spirit Clan. But this time, something fell off. The leader yelled at everyone to run. Before his fellow could make sense of what was happening, he was slashed into pieces by the Spirit Clan. The leader stood in shock. Monkey quickly transformed into the golden ape to fight it. But unfortunately, he met his demise. His body was torn in two. The leader attacked the Spirit Clan. The Spirit Clan took significant damage. He then grabbed the Spirit Clan member and threw him on the ground. After that, the leader sat there horrified. He couldn't believe what had just happened in front of his eyes. They had all promised that they would get stronger together. They were supposed to enter the competition again, but now they were all gone. Tears trickled down his cheeks, and he became enraged and started screaming. Meanwhile, a lady who was supposed to meet the leader seemed to be passing by. Her destination was the forest area, and she wanted to team up with them to enter the competition. When she was busy daydreaming, she smelled something burning. She later saw the blazing fire that roared high in the sky. She started wondering what had happened there when she noticed someone in the fire. She quickly ran into the fire to see the injured leader sitting between the roaring fire, reminiscing over their purpose and motives, which they all had planned to achieve together. She also noticed the corpse of the Spirit Clan. They started to appear outside of the East region and set the whole area on fire. She wondered what kind of creatures they were to do this much damage. Meanwhile, Li Yunqi was busy getting annoyed by the tattoo on his hand when Trent interrupted him to have a look at something. They all went to see a tall, mysterious building that appeared before them. No one had any idea what it was. A long time ago, the Supreme Master visited the royal palace to meet the second prince. The Supreme Master was a grade 63 warrior, one of the most vital teachers in the world. He had taught a third of the world's masters. The second prince had no grade, but possessed phenomenal beings as his pets, toys, and maids. His pet was a grade 55 soul-devouring magical beast. His toy was a grade 42 chaos golem, a grade 40 dimensional black hole was his trash can, and a grade 74 warrior worked as his personal maid. He had nothing to worry about, but he needed a teacher to teach him skills so he could upgrade his grade. The Supreme Master had come to teach him, but he didn't feel any excitement whatsoever since every few days. He would meet older men like him who'd come to teach him, but they all looked boring. But he had no intention of learning things this way. He fantasized about being in a cultivation academy, studying in a classroom with glass windows with his peers, where they sometimes have extracurricular activities. The young prince who fantasized about having such a life was none other than Li Yunqi. He had defeated his opponents and made himself eligible to be in the high-tier area, where he could have a chance at the life he imagined as a kid. Moreover, the opportunity was in front of him. The tall, mysterious building was the tall Academy Tower. Trant got excited and asked Li Yunqi to visit the tower. He knew he had little time left, so he wanted to make the most of the situations and opportunities presented to him. He wanted to experience his life as a commoner. When they entered the tower, they saw big, bulked guys training and wondered what this was all about. A man came rushing towards them. He greeted them and introduced himself as Bobo. The first question Li Yunqi had was how they could graduate from there. Bobo was shocked since they had just arrived here and were already considering graduating. Boba explained that they used to have graduation competitions in the past, but they don't happen anymore. They got a new dean who changed the rules. Now, only those who could beat the dean in a duel could graduate from the academy, and nobody in the past 6 months was able to do so. The dean stayed on the 80th floor of the building, and without having second thoughts, Xiao Hao went straight up to meet her and challenge her to a duel. Bobo turned to Li Yunqi once again and started giving him insights on the tower's different floors. Each floor, starting from the 2nd to the 70th floor, had a new fighting skill that could be learned. These skills weren't exceptional, but they had a diverse range of use. They could be used in any battle effectively. This intrigued Li Yunqi, and he immediately called out to his fellows to go and explore the 2nd floor. Bobo told them that they could not enter the 2nd floor this easily. They had to take a strength test. Only those who had immense strength could qualify and enter the 2nd floor, hence why everyone they saw was building muscle strength. Bobo snakingly tried to sell them his protein powder to help them achieve their goals sooner, but they did not need it. They all passed the test swiftly on the first attempt. The club members of the tower immediately came to escort them to the 2nd floor. They now have access to the 40th floor. Boba tried to cling to them so he could enter the 2nd floor, but the anonymous member denied access to him. Furthermore, he tried bribing the anonymous member with his protein powder and connections, but they were relaxed. Subsequently, the club members bluntly told him to follow the rules and pass the test if he wished to enter the 2nd floor. They pushed him back and continued to escort the 3 of them. Afterward, he advised Li Yunqi and his fellows to ignore Bobo, as he came from the Valley of the Magicians a year ago, and he wasn't a qualified magician, but still wanted to try his luck. The towers had no teachers, but only the rules that were enforced on everyone. But Boba always tried to find a way around the rules to get to the upper floors, making him a complete loser. They were astonished to see the views when they reached the 2nd floor. The 2nd floor looked exactly like the outside world. It had sky, buildings, and an environment similar to it, and this was something beyond their imagination. The club member explained that this floor had only a few residents, and they saw the outside world's details because it was all simulated. He further explained to them the rules regarding cultivation and fighting skills. As they progressed, they saw a tall stone. The member explained that this was the strength measuring stone exclusive to the 2nd floor. When attacked, it would calculate the strengths and cultivation levels of the attacker, providing them with a detailed appraisal of their abilities. Furthermore, based on the appraisal, it will distribute some basic fighting skills from different sects, and each person can only use the stone once. After using it, the attacker will be characterized into 6 basic levels, which are ordinary, strong, strongest, berserk, invincible, and demonic. In fact, most people could only obtain ordinary skills, whereas combining a satisfactory combination of skills was more difficult. Thus, in order to adapt to the tower's rule, they should join the Tall Towers Rules Club. The anonymous member also belonged to the ruled club, and he tried to convince them to join. They only had to put on similar masks as them to join. He further elaborated that the best way to cultivate in this tower was by trading their skills somewhat with one another to get the one they wanted. Li Yunqi vanished from his sight and went straight to the strength-measuring stone. He threw a powerful punch at the stone, which made the stone tremble, and the whole tower felt its impact. Strangely enough, he was able to obtain 40,000 points, the highest level of demonic skill. Still, he seemed unimpressed. The club member saw this and panicked, thinking the stone had malfunctioned, giving him the highest skill level. After that, Li Yunqi encouraged Trent to go and try his strength too. He was able to achieve a score of 80 and an ordinary skill. He looked delighted by it. Li Yunqi offered him to trade their skills. He got the demonic skill while Li Yunqi got the ordinary skill, which made him happier than before. The club members could not understand this skilled trade, since no one in their right mind would offer such a trade. Li Yunqi also told Li Feilei to try it out, but he was content with his talents. The club members got annoyed by their behavior and said to them that they could only survive in this tower if they became members of the ruling club as well. But Li Yunqi and his fellows had no intentions whatsoever. Li Feilei took them to another spot which he found interesting. It was the battle lottery shop. Li Yunqi warned him about the possibility of these lotteries being fixed, but Feilei had a plan. He would bet on Li Yunqi, and the more skill he obtained, the more they'll earn. He also assigned Trent with a task to buy all the spirit stones, spiritual liquids, from every vending machine. Since the spirit stones can be used everywhere, they would practically become rich. Trent got excited hearing Li Feilei's plan. He revealed that this was their family's traditional skill, meaning they all were his family. Li Yunqi wondered about Xiao Hao. She had with her extremely powerful soul eggs, so she must be fine. The next day, they initiated their plan, and their plan worked. After 10 days, Li Yunqi had acquired many fighting skills, making Li rich. He made the lottery shop go out of business. Meanwhile, Trent bought all the spirit stones and spiritual liquids from the vending machines, completely emptying them out. Their actions stirred trouble, and the president of the Academy's rule club, Wang Zhengji, got informed about their mischievous adventures. She decided to teach them how adults fight. She planned to target them at the fighting skill tournament that would be held on the 39th floor the day after tomorrow. Judging from their behaviors, he knew that they would definitely participate in the tournament, and that is where he planned to torture them. At the rest area, Li Yunqi gathered all his fighting skill cards and wondered which one he should learn. Trent suggested that he should know all of them. Li Feilei entered the room laughing hysterically. He came with another bag of cash and piled it up in his cash collection. As he couldn't believe how stupid the lottery shop organization was, they had increased their payout for whoever betted on Li Yunqi, even after losing this much money because of him. He brought a tournament schedule. This was the tournament that was going to be held on the 39th floor. He told Li Yunqi that he would be competing against 7 participants, and to win, he had to win 3 rounds. Therefore, Li Feilei planned to bet all his money on Li Yunqi, hoping they would win and become set for life. The reward for the tournament was All In, a unique skill that allowed the user to unleash all of their fighting skills according to their spiritual energy capacity until their energy was exhausted or every skill had been used. As a result, the reward piqued Li Yunqi's interest in the tournament, and he agreed to participate. The club member informed their president that people had bet all their money on Li Yunqi, and the organization had also increased the payout for his victory. The president grinned and explained that the people in the organization were brilliant. The money they gathered from people didn't mean much to them. What mattered was, they would have a perfect opportunity to kill, and if he helped them in the killing, he would receive 20% of the cut. He further explained that this is how adults get what they want, while kids put their money on useless stuff. Then the president asked the members if their goons were ready, and the members assured him that he had nothing to worry about, they would get the job done. Meanwhile, Ah Bing got up and bid farewell to her big brothers. He would collect more supplies and meet them on the 39th floor during the tournament. After a while, he reached where he was supposed to find a vending machine, but there was nothing there. He wondered if he had come to the right place when someone attacked him and kidnapped him. Soon, the president got informed that the job had been done, and they moved to the 39th floor. The battle arena was set, and everyone had gathered to witness the magnificent fight between the most vital participants of the tower. The host explained the game's rules. All the participants had to compete in random pairings. To win, they should win 3 consecutive rounds. Afterward, he introduced the participants, including Hercules Lee Dolly from the lower ground, the cold-blooded assassin Chris Kralik, the new dark horse Li Yunqi from the East region, and the Rule Club Wang Zhengji president. The tournament began shortly after. All the pairings stepped inside the ring. Li Yunqi couldn't find Bing and wondered where he'd be. His opponent took this as a chance to attack, but got knocked off by a little attack from him. All 4 matches ended, and they moved to the second round. The club member informed the president about the great strengths of the participants, but the president was confident in himself. This time, Li Yunqi faced Hercules from the lower ground. He gave Li Yunqi a chance to attack him first. He had underestimated him. Li Yunqi knocked him off without moving an inch from his place in one swift attack. Everyone started cheering for him. Meanwhile, the match between Chris and the president was still in progress. When Chris mocked him since he knew he was more powerful than him, but the president had other plans. He took out his phone and showed him a picture. It was Chris's daughter. He had kidnapped her to blackmail him into withdrawing from the match. After seeing his daughter, he immediately forfeited the match. The president won without even fighting. He turned to Li Yunqi as he was his next opponent, but Li Yunqi was still thinking about Trent's whereabouts. The competition had already come to its last stages. It was the final round. Li Feilei screamed over to Li Yunqi that if he could keep the competition going for at least 10 minutes, they would be able to win more money. The host told the participants to enter the ring. Li Yunqi needed to be more careful if he had to keep the match going for long. The arrogant president steps forwards and challenges Li Yunqi to hit him. Without thinking much, Li Yunqi throws a punch in his face, making him bleed. The president started yelling at him for being rude. He took out his phone and dialed his member's number, but they were not picking up. Li Yunqi threw another punch at him, and another since he had to keep the match going. The president got beaten up badly, and his members were not picking up his call. Suddenly, the call connected, and he asked Li Yunqi to stop and showed him the phone. He threatened him that if he lay a single finger on him again, his spiritual pet will die. Li Yunqi was surprised that he called Trent his spiritual pet. He further called him a monster that always stayed beside Li Yunqi. On the other side of the phone, Trent was sitting peacefully. He had taken down all the members and informed Li Yunqi about his catch. Upon hearing Trent, the president got furious and started cursing his members for not being able to kill a mere pet. Trent had listened to every word the president said about him. Li Yunqi grabbed him and asked Trent if he was okay. He told him he was fine and would have to go back home as something came up. He wouldn't be able to follow him around anymore and hung up on him. The president told Li Yunqi that even if his pet were safe, he still wouldn't be able to win. The organization was going to kill him if he won. He threw a powerful punch at the president, smashing him into the ground. He won. He urgently called Li Feilei and asked him to collect his skill. He had to go somewhere. At the rest area, Trent had piled up his collection of spiritual stones and liquids. His mission was complete. He took her bag and left the rest area. On his way, he kept telling himself that he had a name, Bing. Suddenly, he got interrupted by a stone that called him the spiritual pet, who radiated negative energy and made an offer to him. All he had to do was tell him he craved power, and in return, he would grant him the power he desired. He got annoyed and kicked him hard, yelling at him and telling him he was Bing. He was not a spiritual pet or a monster. Consequently, he reminisced on his past in the eastern region at the magical beast forest where he was born. He always wanted to make friends, but everyone used him and manipulated him into doing evil deeds. To begin, he made the veggie folks her friends and used to do whatever they told him to do. And when things went south, they would throw Bing under the bus and blame him for everything they did. He always got in trouble and ended up beaten for the mischief they created. A huge Trent appeared to help Bing. He beat up his bullies and scared them off. Afterward, he took Bing with him. Bing realized that the veggie folks had conned him because he was different from them. He got bullied by them. The Trent told her that Trents don't lie to each other and gained his trust. After a while, they showed up before their king. The king offered Bing to join them. He recognized his powers and made him the champion of the Trents. Since Bing didn't know how to fight, he gave him the task of finding targets in the forest and ordering the other Trents to beat them up. Everyone cheered for Bing, the champion who'd lead them to glory. Her training started. The Trent king trained him to be a mean bad guy. He rewarded Bing with a spirit stone for doing well in his training. Because of this, Bing was delighted. He couldn't help but think how generous his king was. Even though he was poor, he still gave him a spirit stone. He realized that he couldn't accept this gift and went to return it. When he went to return it, he overheard other Trents talking about how stupid he was to believe them and accept a useless stone as a spirit stone. They asked their king how they would have to keep Bing around, as they now were getting help from the higher-ups, so there was no need to keep him around. But the king told them not to trust the higher-ups too much, and if the academy decided to come after them, they would throw Ah Bing's corpse in front of them and blame everything on him. This made Ah Bing's eyes tear up. He couldn't believe they all lied to him. The kind told Ah Bing they lied because they were preparing a surprise for his 5th anniversary with the team. Ah Bing immediately apologized for doubting his king and decided to work harder. After a few years, he realized that they all were liars. They were using him for their own benefit. He decided to save money on his own and leave them. Then one day, he met Li Yunqi. His eyes were as bright as his when he was younger. He would have made an easy target, but he was extremely powerful. Ah Bing saw his first real spirit stone after meeting him. His king had kept all the wealth hidden in his guts, and he got infuriated by the thought that his king wanted to eat him in the end. He realized they all were liars from the start and decided he would become a con man too. That day, he made a deal with Li Feilei to take him to Li Yunqi. In return, he would take him to the hospital. Ah Bing had planned that he would use Li Yunqi and make him take the fall while he reaped the benefits. He wanted to become like his king, the one he hated the most. Ah Bing's memories flash. His memories took him back to the time when he thought he had become a con man and had fooled his brothers, Li Yunqi and Li Feilei, into thinking that he was on their side. Later, Ah Bing took the throne in the magical beast forest after the Great Trent defeat. Everyone gathered around and cheered him for making it big. He got overjoyed and promised them that after he became strong, he would help them get strong as well. Furthermore, Li Yunqi offered him the golden dust from King Trent as it was his to begin with. At first, Ah Bing got happy, but he stopped himself and thought, reminding himself that he was a con man and had to take the dust from them one way or another. He then thanked his big brother, but was stunned when Li Yunqi told him not to, since they were brothers. Later, he was taken back to the time when he had to read bedtime stories to a kid. Ah Bing tried to trick her by repeating the same story repeatedly, but the kid realized his tricks and called him a liar. He spanked the kid and told him he was not a liar. Moreover, he realized now he had a true family, brother Li Yunqi, brother Li Feilei, and sister Xiao Hao. Back when he was kidnapped, the club members made fun of him for thinking that he actually belonged to their family, and that he was actually their brother. He bullied him and told him he was not human, and there was no way they would consider him a true brother. They lied to him and used him for their gains. Thus, Ah Bing got enraged. He knew they were not lying. He knew they considered him a brother and not a pet. He attacked the club members and knocked them off when he received the video call and heard the president call him a monster and a spiritual pet, which shattered Ah Bing. He then told Li Yunqi that he had to go back home and leave. He told himself not to think of his brothers as liars. He considered returning to the forest and retrieving his throne. His thoughts were disturbed when he heard a familiar voice. It was Li Yunqi. He found him. Ah Bing began to cry, hugged his brother, and told him not to lie. He explained why he left, and Li Yunqi assured him that he indeed was their brother, even if he wasn't a human. He himself was not a human. This made Ah Bing shocked. He told him that if anyone would dare to bully him, he would kill them. He said to Ah Bing that he would tell him about himself after they had dealt with their enemies. Ah Bing got curious and asked who their next enemies were. Li Yunqi reminded him of the spirit clan member he and Feilei took down and showed him the mark on his hand. When the mark disappeared, even stronger enemies would come towards them. Ah Bing noticed that the mark had already disappeared. Li Yunqi got up and grabbed Ah Bing and told him to hurry. They were now in trouble. Li Yunqi rushed to find the dean. The organization members came to stop him. He didn't recognize them and asked them if they knew the dean's office. The members were taken aback by his politeness, but soon regained their sense. Half of the organization's members thought he had ties with the dean. That's why he was so arrogant. The leader of the group warned him that they had control over the deans. All the previous deans were their puppets, and this one was no different. He called the dean and asked her if she had received the money from the organization after her confirmation. They asked her to kill someone for them, but the dean refused. This made him furious, and he started yelling at her for being unfaithful and not obeying the organization's rules like the previous deans. She then confidently reminded them she was made the dean because she could fight, and was not like the previous deans, and hung up. Sister Xiao Hao and her soul eggs were serving the dean since they lost miserably to her. Moreover, the dean told Xiao Hao to clean up and allowed her to leave. She was mesmerized by the dean's power and happily agreed to her orders. Later, the dean went out to meet someone. Meanwhile, the leader angrily threw his phone and started cursing the dean. Li Yunqi was not interested in his rant, so he began to walk away. But the leader called him out in rage for not listening to him and ignoring him. Suddenly, the dean appeared and hugged Li Yunqi. Strangely enough, Li Yunqi was amazed to see her here. It turns out they were old acquaintances. The dean of the Tall Tower Academy was Sister Yu Wan. Afterward, the organization's people became aware of their connection but were still not letting Li Yunqi go. But Sister Yu Wan ordered them to get on their knees, and they suddenly felt a power suppressing them, making them unable to move. The leader recognized the powerful presence. He wondered why a monster that had exceeded the warrior realm would come here. After some time, the dean let them go and turned to Li Yunqi. He was astonished and confused, and immediately asked her if Xiao Hao was still alive. Therefore, she assured him that she didn't hurt her much since she was pretty, but she indeed disciplined her. He then asked if she had already dealt with the Spirit Clan. He knew they had arrived. She told him she didn't encounter them but could take them down easily if they came toward her. The last question he asked was if his brother had sent her here. Sister Yuan immediately denied it. She looked at Li Yunqi and hugged him before he could say anything. Bing tried to get in, but he got beaten by Sister Yuan. She told Li Yunqi to accompany him to her office so they could talk. It seemed like Yuan had known Li Yunqi since childhood. Someone once said that if the world were a metal block, the Spirit Clan would be the rust that formed over it. When Li Yunqi was younger, he witnessed the chaos that occurred. The royal capital was engulfed in flames, and the Iron Army that protected the royal capital was annihilated in one night. The Spirit Clan had become more powerful. They outgrew humans in number. Soon, humans realized that they could not defeat the Spirit Clan. On that day, Li Yunqi became aware of his fate as a member of the royal family. The queen gathered her 3 sons and turned to ashes before their eyes, leaving them anguished. Her sacrifice made the Spirit Clan disappear at once. The rust had vanished from the block, but the elements that made the rust remained. As a member of the royal family, it was their duty to protect the world from the rust, even if that meant sacrificing themselves. In the dean's chambers, Sister Yuan told Li Yunqi that the queen too had come here to cultivate. She could obtain a hidden rating from the Strength Stone. She was the strongest warrior but never considered challenging the Spirit King. Li Yunqi corrected her and told her that his mother wanted to challenge the king, but at that time, she could not bear the consequences. Every region was afraid of the Spirit King, and they worried about being wiped away from existence. Li Yunqi also told her that only his elder brother could protect the regions from going extinct, and with his help and hers, he could defeat the king. If he fails to win the war against him, he will try to imprison him just like his mother did. Yuan questioned his motive. He told her that this needed to be done no matter what, since the Spirit King was a curse on the world and the royal family. Being victorious didn't matter to him. He wanted to gain information so that the coming generations could protect themselves from him. Yuan asked him why, out of his 3 brothers, he was the one who had to sacrifice himself. Li Yunqi told her that his elder brother was capable of protecting the regions, and his younger brother needed to be protected at all costs. His mother advised them to take care of him, and as his brother, it was his duty. Yuan jumped on Li Yunqi and hugged him while admiring him. He asked her about the access to the high-tier areas, and she told him that he could access them and that she had been protecting the area for him from anyone who had ill intentions. After the graduation competition, he can choose whomever he wants to follow. He thanked her and left the chambers with Bing. On their way, Bing asked him where they were headed. He told him they needed to find Li Feilei and Xiao Hao to prepare for the graduation competition. According to Li Yunqi, the Spirit Clan had already appeared. They needed to graduate from the tower quickly. Sister Xiao Hao didn't understand the connection between the Spirit Clan and their graduation. Li Yunqi explained that the Spirit Clan was after him. In order to protect the people, he needed to stay away from the crowd. Since the candidates on the top floor were of extreme strength and power, it made the perfect opportunity for them to hide and attack him. The battle would be broadcast live on the first floor's main hall only. If the Spirit Clan shows up, the broadcast will shut down. Out of the 17 candidates, he needed one to join them since they needed a group of 5 to enter the next area. Xiao Hao told him that she didn't plan to follow them anymore, so they would need to fill her position as well. But Li Yunqi ignored her, and he continued explaining his strategy. If they were to encounter a member from the Spirit Clan, they would surrender immediately, which, according to the rules, would remove them from the stage. Li Yunqi told Xiao Hao to participate in the competition, and he would help her pass on to the next area while he dealt with the Spirit Clan alone. Xiao Hao doubted him. He told her that whomever they sent here today wouldn't be very intelligent, and it would be easy to identify them in the crowd. Li Yunqi had devised a plan. He told his fellows to keep an eye on the reactions of everyone. He stepped forward and declared that he was the second prince and challenged them to come at him. A girl came out and started to make fun of him for himself, a prince. Zhao Hao began to laugh at his stupidity as well. A group of warriors came and told the girl named Qiajin to stop being rude since they had come here to win the competitions and not make enemies. The fellow group member also told her to stop pissing people off. But it was a requirement for her skill. She had to do it. The group leader took them away, trying not to draw attention towards them. Li Yunqi eliminated them from the list of suspects since they didn't appear suspicious. He tried to look for the person who'd stand out the most, but he realized that the remaining contestants didn't look like humans, which confused him even more. Suddenly, he saw Bobo. He asked him how he was able to come here because earlier he was stopped from coming here. Bobo revealed that he had passed the strength test by working hard. His energy suddenly gave him an explosive improvement, but he was not here to fight. He only wanted to test his strength. Li Yunqi realized that out of everyone, Bobo was the one who looked more human, and no one would believe him if he were to say he was innocent. Li Yunqi got a hold of the fight schedule. He called Fei Lei and Xiao Hao and told them that if Bobo didn't get eliminated in the first round and they encountered him, they needed to surrender because he was the imposter from the Spirit Clan. According to Li Yunqi's plan, Xiao Hao and Li Fei Lei had to surrender if they encountered Bobo in the second round. Even though Xiao Hao did not like the idea and was unwilling to do it, she refused to surrender to someone who was weaker than her. Li Yunqi tried to persuade her, implying that he would take all the team members to the next round if he won, but Xiao Hao got angry at him too. She refused his offer in sheer rage. This confused Li Yunqi about her concern about losing this competition. Soon the competition began, opening the first round. All the contestants were called on stage for the opening round. When the contestants finally faced each other in the run, the first contestant, Xiao Hao, was put against Zhang Qianjin. She was burning with determination as she was desperate for this victory, especially when she had brought the king of the Black Mountains with her to the weakest area, only to breeze through the competition. But in the end, she had only come across freaks who thrashed her with just one attack. Her desperation to win proliferated. This was the result of her not being able to gain a single victory since they arrived at the tower for the competition. As everything flashed right before her eyes, she was more eager to win this competition, irrespective of the circumstances. If she could not do so, her last resort was to find a low-level area where she could rule forever and be respected for her skills. Her thoughts were interrupted when Qianjin addressed her briefly and started mocking her. This enraged Xiao Hao, and they threw her 2 powerful soul eggs at her. At that very moment, the monsters were unleashed, and she ordered them to kill Qianjin. But suddenly, the live broadcast, which was going on the first floor, went off. While on the top floor, the Spirit Clan and the Black Mountain King were ready to attack Qiajin with all their might. But strangely enough, Qiajin was not at all affected. Instead, she absorbed their energies and used them against the Spirit Clan and the Black Mountain King. Her comeback was so powerful that it threw them off across the ring. After facing this miserable defeat, Xiao Hao was taken aback, and she got even more furious. She started blaming herself for not being strong enough. She blamed herself for being unable to defeat even those who were weaker than her. As she was in despair, Qiajin paid her respect and apologized for disparaging her Xiao Hao. She explained that she had to do it. She had to defeat her to gain strength. She told her that she greatly respected her, as she was the strongest warrior she had met besides her master. Apparently, it was among Zhang Qiajin's powers to consume large amounts of spiritual energy. She could absorb energy from her opponent's attacks with her right hand and release it through her left hand within 10 seconds. When the match results were announced, Qiajin was declared the winner. On the other side of the arena, the second match for Group A was about to begin. This time, it was Bobo's turn to fight, and he was about to face an opponent much more vital than him in the ring. But then, Bobo told his opponent he didn't know how to fight. He told his opponent that he might seem solid and muscular but had no fighting skills. He even revealed that he is a magician and has studied magic. Hence, his only potential was his command over magic. So he requested that his opponent give him some time to figure things out and be sure of his magical abilities against his opponent. His opponent agreed to his request and eagerly waited for him to attack. Bobo had made an unfamiliar request from his opponent. He requested that his opponent give him some time to conjure up his magic skills. He noticed his opponent moving closer to him as he stood there, trying to conjure up his magic skills. His opponent decided to take advantage of his naivety and was going to attack. This caught Bobo off guard. As Bobo was still not ready for the attack, he got startled and tried to stop his opponent. As he convinced himself and closed his eyes in fear, suddenly, a loud bang was heard. He rushed and found his opponent on the other side of the ring. The sudden turn of events made Bobo confused. He was unable to figure out if he had actually succeeded in casting a spell or not since he was so nervous. When he looked a bit closer, he saw that his opponent's face looked like it had been slapped hard. The opponent did not seem very happy about it. He stood up in anger and threatened Bobo for attacking him. He was furious at Bobo for lying to him that he didn't know how to fight. But Bobo was not paying attention to him as he was busy figuring out how he was able to attack his opponent this easily. Bobo got very excited over his newly acquired skill and wanted to try it out again. In order to do so, he leaned forward and slapped his opponent across the face, knocking him out in seconds. Bobo felt extremely surprised when the announcer declared Bobo the winner. As soon as he heard his name being called, he couldn't believe it. He could not believe that he had finally done it on his own. At that moment, all his memories flashed right before his eyes. He remembered the time when the people of his academy treated him like a disgrace and a loser. Just because he was unable to use magic, they all treated him like dirt. This made Bobo more eager to get stronger and make use of his muscles instead. In that eagerness, he even tried lifting weights and doing all sorts of struggles, but failed miserably in each one of them. To add more to the misery, he ended up dislocating his wrist. He remembered all those times when he was crying and screaming in pain. At times, he called himself a loser. He finally realized that he wasn't a loser. He was now sure of it. Once again, his eyes teared up, and he was finally proud that he was no longer a loser but a winner. Meanwhile, Li Yunqi was waiting for his fellows outside the stage when he heard a loud bang. It was Sister Xiao Hao. She slammed the door behind her and started walking towards him angrily, furious at her defeat. Li Yunqi tried consoling her, telling her that the defeat didn't matter since it was all a formality, but she got enraged and blamed him for her defeat. This made Li Yunqi confused, and he tried proposing an idea. He told her that he would help her win in her next fight, but she refused immediately and stomped away. She left, saying that it was her own fight, and that she needed to earn her honor back by herself, and that she didn't need him. As Li Yunqi watched her stomp away, he heard a familiar voice. It was Jia Jin. She had come to warn him about his next fight against her master. She told him that her master was very powerful and strong, and that he wouldn't be able to defeat him. Li Yunqi took her words as advice, and thanked her for informing him, which made Jia Jin pissed. Then suddenly, someone bumped into Li Yunqi. As he turned around to see the person, he realized that it was Jia Jin's master, Zhang Feihe. He also couldn't help but notice that Jia Jin's master was glaring at him with fierce eyes as he was going to face him as an opponent for the next match. As the third match of the competition commenced, all eyes were on the arena. It was now Li Feilei's turn to fight. The match had just begun, but already his opponent was urging him to surrender since he was much more capable than he was, and he wanted to give him a chance to take the safe way out. But Li Feilei wasn't fazed. He was determined to fight him. He put up his wrist and ignited it. As soon as his opponent caught sight of his hands ablaze, he knew he was outmatched. With a look of defeat, he promptly surrendered. He then approached him and apologized. He explained that he had not realized that his opponent was a member of the notorious Ashes group. It was only after witnessing his opponent's fighting skills that he recognized him. He humbly admitted that he was clearly unworthy of having a fight with him. This was making Li Feilei confused. He told him he had no idea who or what the Ashes group was, but his opponent refused to believe him since the explosion skill he just used was a trademark skill of the Ashes group. Furthermore, he told him that according to legends, a few members of the Fire group once blew up an entire region, but he knew it happened only because they were provoked first. This confused Li Feilei as he knew that explosive skills were only unique to the Dean, and he started to wonder who these people were. He took his leave and went off stage to meet his fellows. He went to Li Yunqi and told him that his opponent mistook him for someone else and surrendered immediately. As he was telling Li Yunqi about his victory, Xiao Hao looked at him with burning eyes. Li Yunqi took out the match schedule and told Feilei to surrender if he encountered Bobo in the next round, since he suspected him as a member of the Spirit Clan. Jia Jin had overheard their conversation and came to threaten them again. Since Li Feilei didn't know who she was, he kicked her for being annoying. Jia Jin called him and told him that her Herculean sister would take revenge on him when he went up against her tomorrow in the next match. Soon they heard Ah Bing, who was running towards them, screaming that he had won. Jia Jin couldn't help but feel annoyed by this news. After all, his match was against her senior brother, and she knew it would be tough, but he still managed to defeat him. Her master Zhang Feihe told her to calm down. The only reason he brought them all here was to gain experience, so it didn't matter if they won or lost. As the competition progressed, Lee Yunqi couldn't shake off his suspicion of Bobo. Despite the smooth sailing of the event, he knew that the final round was still ahead of them. He realized he couldn't let his guard down and had to be cautious of everyone around him, as anyone could be an imposter. After a while, the announcer declared Seong the winner of the last round. Qiajin wasn't able to believe her ears. Her Herculean sister had lost. The back door opened, and her sister came out covered in blood from head to toe. She rushed towards her sister and took her to get treated. Soon after, her opponent, Seong, came out and apologized to his team for being so rough on her. Qiajin blew up on him, but her master came in and calmed her down. Zhang Feihe was furious, and he asked him if he had to be this rough on her since it was just a competition. But Seong had no remorse whatsoever. He told him he followed the rules and didn't kill her, so it was all right. His response made Zhang Feihe burn with anger, but he controlled himself. Lee Yunqi had been observing their interaction and wondered why he would reveal his powers now, or if it was a trick to lure him into attacking him. Thus, the competition had come to an end. After the 8 matches today, the rest of the competition would commence the next day. As everyone started to leave, Lee Yunqi noticed A Xiong leaving with his fellow and started to tail them. He overheard one of them saying that it was forbidden for them to fight outside of the actual competition. He stepped forward and told them to come at him since they were only participating to attack him in the first place. The next day, everyone prepared to move to the rooftop for the competition. But they were not able to find Lee Yunqi anywhere. They all searched for him, but still couldn't find him. Suddenly, he returned, and Bing informed Fei Lei about his arrival. Bing noticed Lee Yunqi was covered in blood and got worried, but Lee Yunqi told him not to worry since it wasn't his blood. Lee Yunqi then took a shower and left with his fellow competitors for the competition. On his way, he told Li Fei Lei that he had already killed both of their opponents for the first match. After hearing this, Li Fei Lei confirmed whether he was able to kill the Spirit Clan, but Lee Yunqi was not sure and told him to still keep an eye out for Bobo. Bing intervened and asked him what he should do during his match, and Lee Yunqi told him to do whatever he pleased. Thus, the 4 matches for the second round of the competition went down to only a single match. Fei Lei and Lee Yunqi were watching the matches when Fei Lei reminded him that it wasn't allowed. Lee Yunqi told him that he was the one who made the rules, so it didn't matter. Shortly after, Li Fei Lei noticed Zhang Feihe staring at them. He looked courteous, but now he looked at them as if he wanted to kill them. The match had begun, and Bobo was fighting Qiajin for his first round. In order to activate her fighting skill, she mocked Bobo and started to make fun of him, calling him a loser and telling him to surrender, but this only made things worse. Bobo's ego was hurt and he got furious. He attacked Qiajin at once. She tried absorbing his energy, but she was not able to sense any. She started to panic, thinking that he was only using his brute strength and that she had nothing on him. As her last resort, she quickly started apologizing and telling him that she had surrendered, but Bobo attacked her again even before she could finish her sentence. He then asked her to speak louder, and when she did, he went and grabbed her mouth, ordering her to speak even louder. As Li Fei Lei and Lee Yunqi were speculating, Fei Lei lost control after witnessing this misuse of strength, and he told Lee Yunqi that he was going to stop it, but Lee Yunqi told him not to. With a quick flash, Zhang Feihe came and parted, and the announcer declared Bobo the winner. Zhang Feihe had enough. He turned to Bobo and threatened him, but Bobo was not afraid, so he challenged Zhang Feihe to fight with him. Quickly, Li Fei Lei jumped into the ring and told Bobo that his next opponent was him and not Li Fei Lei. After that, he turned to Lee Yunqi and said to him that they should start their fight as well. Lee Yunqi couldn't help but notice that something was off, since Fei Lei was not acting like himself today. Meanwhile, the match between Li Fei Lei and Bobo had started, and Bobo recognized him as the one who had looked down on him on the first floor. But Li Fei Lei was sure he had never looked down on him before. Bobo was not willing to listen to his ass. He told Li Fei Lei that he had seen people like him who think highly of themselves just because they have little talent. Li Fei Lei soon realized that his sudden burst of energy had also boosted his ego, and that he needed a good beating in order to teach him a lesson. Upon hearing this, Bobo became infuriated and conjured up his magic to attack him, but Li Fei Lei took the lead and attacked him first. Bobo got infuriated by Li Fei Lei's attack, as he didn't expect him to slam this hard. The attack hurt his ego, and now he wanted to take revenge on him. He sat on the ground and told him he would attack him back with 10 times more power and remind him of his place. But Li Fei Lei didn't care about his threat and told him to knock it off since he wasn't as powerful as he thought he was. He said he could relate to him since he was once like this too. But Bobo got enraged since he despised Li Feilei and didn't think they were the same. He tried attacking Li Feilei but got humbled soon enough when he was thrown across the stage by Li Feilei's punch. This made Bobo extremely annoyed and irritated. Li Feilei tried to tell him that he could understand why he was feeling annoyed at him. He further told him that he was more arrogant than him when he first got his explosive fighting skill and thought he could beat anyone until he was beaten up by his junior brother and got humbled. He then proceeded to give him the same beating he got to teach him a lesson. Meanwhile, on the other side of the stage, Li Yunqi was facing Zhang Feihe for his last match. He noticed that he had been staring at him for a long time now. Since he wanted to know the reason, he asked Li Feihe if he had offended him in some way. But to his surprise, Feihe revealed that he had seen him in a battle the night before and asked him to reveal his identity. After hearing this, Li Yunqi was shocked and thought he must possess great power since he wasn't able to sense his presence last night during the battle. Li Feihe further elaborated that he got more furious after witnessing his battle than when he saw his disciples beaten and injured. Since he knew it wasn't an ordinary battle and he couldn't interfere with it, his curiosity increased, and he again asked Li Yunqi to reveal his identity. But instead of answering his question, Li Yunqi started telling him about his opponent. He told him it was the Spirit Clan he was fighting, and they are creatures who have nothing but malice for humankind. He advised Zhang Feihe to kill them if he ever encountered them, but also told him to run since humans are no match for them. Zhang Feihe was getting annoyed since his question was not being answered. He again asked Li Yunqi about his identity, but this time, it wasn't in a polite manner. The fight between Li Feilei and Bobo had taken a turn. Bobo was being beaten up badly by Li Feilei, and he wasn't ready to accept his defeat. As he was sitting on the ground trying to process how he ended up like this when Li Feilei approached him, he was concerned for Bobo and told him to accept the reality and admit his defeat. Because those who thought they were strong were really just inexperienced, and to admit something, one had to experience it. Even though he was beating Bobo, he was actually feeling sad and hurt for him as he was able to see his past self in him. Despite Li Feilei's words, Bobo found it hard to believe him as he saw how much he enjoyed beating him up to a pulp. After seeing him talk back, Li Feilei knew he needed more beating, but Bobo got scared and asked him to stop and promised him that he would never be arrogant again. Li Feilei let out a sigh of relief and told Bobo to now focus on his cultivation to become stronger, and advised him not to feel shame in admitting his weakness and defeat, as those who thought high and mighty of themselves were the ones who were weak. Furthermore, he told Bobo to surrender as he decided he wouldn't fight him anymore. But suddenly Bobo heard a voice that ordered him to kill Li Feilei. It was the stone, the same stone that Trent came across. Bobo was now very satisfied and told the stone he didn't wish to kill him, but the stone was not having at it. Straight away, the stone jumped into Bobo's mouth and went in to take control of his body. Li Yunqi and Li Feilei noticed him changing into a completely different form. As soon as the transformation was complete, Bobo wasted no time and charged toward his opponent. With a swift and powerful motion, he slashed his arm with all his might. At that moment, he seemed to have lost himself completely. The attack from Bobo was missed, but it greatly impacted Li Feilei. His attack made Li Feilei weak. As soon as he saw this, he stroked again, splattering blood everywhere. He was enjoying torturing Li Feilei when he heard a thud behind him. Li Yunqi had stepped into the ring, and he looked enraged. As the stone fed on hatred, Li Yunqi was a perfect target for him since he could sense immense hatred radiating from him. His face glistened with pleasure, but suddenly, his memories flashed before him, and he was taken back to where it all started. He remembered the time when in the spirit realm, humans were used as pets for the Spirit Clan. Beings like him used to provide spiritual energy to humans, and cultivators were brought into the spirit realm. To the Spirit Clan, humans were seen as similar to how spiritual medicines were to humans. But the method for using them was different. Low-tiered beings from the Spirit Clan would absorb spiritual energy from humans by eating them, while the high-tiered being had to face many restrictions. In his case, he needs hatred to absorb energy from humans. After a while, the spirit realm got sealed suddenly by a mysterious energy that closed all the passages connected from the spirit realm to the human realm. Then, starting from the king, every member of the Spirit Clan fell into a deep sleep, starting from the strongest to the weakest, until darkness, only darkness ruled over the spirit realm. The spirit realm began to awaken many years later when the seal disappeared. The passage from the spirit realm to the human realm was restored, but it suddenly got sealed again. No one knew which power had sealed the realm. After a few times of being sealed again and again, They realized that there existed a family who trained and prepared for a long time and used their life force to seal the realm. The king had ordered to eliminate the family so that they could cultivate and raise humans again to absorb their spiritual energy. The stone memories were vivid, as he also remembered how he killed his own father after he told him all about that family. Afterward, his chain of thoughts was broken when he came back to reality and realized that he was no longer in Bobo's body. Lee Yunqi had separated him from his body and smashed him with his hands. The only thing that remained of him has now shattered pieces of his existence. Later, Ah Bing rushed to help Li Feilei, while Bobo regained consciousness. He had no idea what had happened and started apologizing to them. As Bobo apologized, Li Yunqi stepped closer to Li Feilei and used his holy light to try to heal him, but he was only able to stop his bleeding. Li Feilei had lost his arm in the fight, and Li Yunqi felt responsible for his loss. He apologized to him for losing focus and making him lose his arm. But Li Feilei assured him that it was not a big deal and that he could regrow it once they went back to the eastern region. His words struck Li Yunqi, and he stared at Li Feilei for some time, then told him that he won't be accompanying them back home. He further elaborated that his return would make things worse for the eastern region. This made Li Feilei confused as he couldn't wrap his head around what Li Yunqi was trying to say. Meanwhile, Bobo's cries intensified, and he started blaming himself for everything. Li Yunqi told him not to feel bad since everything that happened was not his fault, but Bobo insisted that it was his fault. Bobo's constant nagging had made Li Yunqi pissed. He hit Bobo and told him to get lost. As soon as he hit him, he noticed that Bobo had reverted to his spirit clan form, but this time, he was not enraged or out of control. Instead, he was still crying and asking for forgiveness. Li Yunqi was astonished to see that the spirit clan's power came back to him, but still, he was in control of his personality. Suddenly, Bobo turned to himself again, and then again reverted to his spirit clan form. This transformation went back and forth for some time. Li Yunqi realized that his hit triggered the transformation, and although his personality changes, he still is himself. Li Yunqi quickly called Li Feilei and Ah Bing and told them to beat Bobo. Both of them charged at Bobo and kept hitting him for some time, but nothing happened. Li Yunqi concluded that the transformation happened only when he was the one hitting him. He knew he couldn't leave him alone on his own now, so he told Bobo that it wasn't his fault. The spirit clan would have shown up either way. Then he gave Bobo two choices. Either he followed him, or he died by his hand, and Bobo obviously picked the first one. Once the matter had been resolved, Zhang Feihe approached Li Yunqi and asked him to accompany him to the neighborhood area where he was going to get mechanical prosthetics for his disciples because he had some questions for him that he wanted to ask him along the way. Li Yunqi and his fellows, along with Zhang Feihe, set out for their journey when suddenly Ah Bing screamed that they forgot to take Sister Xiao Hao with them. Li Yunqi told Ah Bing that she might not be following them around anymore, and she might have already left. They had covered more than half of the distance in the forest when they encountered a little girl who was looking for her father as he went out to hunt. She stopped and asked them if they had seen a tall man on their way. Ah Bing told him that they hadn't. She then waved them goodbye and went to look further for her father. Shortly after, they noticed a village thinking that they had reached, but Li Feilei told them that it was just an ordinary village where ordinary people lived. They planned to get something to eat from there before continuing their journey. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, a beast stood in front of the girl. The girl had found her father. As the group made their way inside, Ah Bing couldn't help but wonder why these people didn't reside in the tower. He turned to Li Yunqi and posed the question, to which he received a patient response. Li Yunqi explained that these individuals were mere mortals, much like those living outside the eastern region. Despite their proximity to the tower, most of them needed more compatibility for cultivation. They started to wander around the village when they came across a boy who offered them a 20% discount on food and accommodation. Everyone seemed to like the offer. Li Yunqi's attention drifted away from the offer that had captivated everyone else's interest. His gaze wandered around the village, taking in the sight of the contented and dedicated citizens. He couldn't help but wonder that everything he went through and endured was for the sake of them. He suddenly heard the loud voice of a little boy who was dragging his father towards him, excitedly telling his father that they were the guests from the tower. Li Yunqi was flushed. He felt happy and at peace looking at them when suddenly, out of nowhere, a beast jumped on the boy's father and tore him apart. Li Yunqi was not able to believe this. It was the crazed beast of the spirit clan. The noise from the attack was loud, and everyone had heard it. They started to rush towards the place of the incident, but Li Yonki told them not to come closer and leave this place in order to protect themselves. The beast had made Li Yonki his target, rushing toward him and attacking, but Li Yonki was able to strike back. He threw the beast across the street. After this, people started to panic, and they called the academy for help. Meanwhile, Li Feilei and Ah Bing charged at the beast, but it took them down in just a few seconds. They wondered how it could be so powerful. Li Yonki's mind was flooded with a million thoughts at once. He wondered why a beast from the clan would show up here and how they would become stronger. He looked at the beast and realized straight away that at this time, he was no match for the beast since it clearly was stronger than him. But he knew he had to take it down no matter how strong it was, as his real enemy was the Spirit King. He needed to deal with such creatures. All of a sudden, Zhang Feihe stepped in and attacked the beast with his sword intent, immobilizing it straight away. As soon as his disciples saw this, they rushed to attack the beast, but Li Yonki stopped them, as the beast had filled its mouth with fire and aimed it at them. They managed to dodge it, but it destroyed the village. Li Yonki got enraged after seeing the destruction and chaos it had caused. He headed over to its back, summoned up a lighting torrent spell, and attacked it with it. The beast screamed in pain and released his fire breath again, throwing Li Yonki to the ground. The Spirit Clan world was very similar to that of humans. It consisted of intelligent beings like humans and also wild beast-like creatures, that is, the crazed beast. But in order for the beast to take the form, it had to have 2 more levels of clansmen before it became a beast. As the crazy beast infiltrated the village, Li Yonki remembered that according to the previous incursion, at least 2 more members of the Spirit Clan were to appear before the crazed beasts. The beasts appearing earlier took an unexpected turn of events. Despite the grave situation, Li Yonki had to defeat the enemy nonetheless. The crazed beasts began sprinting at full speed toward them. It had taken down Zhang Feihe's disciples. As Qiajin witnessed her brother getting attacked, without a moment of hesitation, she jumped in front of the beast and blocked the beast's attack by activating her skills. Qiajin assumed she could absorb the spiritual energy of the beasts. Alas, it was a colossal error in her judgment. She did not fathom that the members of the Spirit Clan contained a sheer amount of powerful spiritual energy, which could become an anomaly for her. Qiajin became bruised and battered with wounds, but she mustered her strength to cover for her master. As Qiajin was about to suffer countless more injuries by absorbing too much spiritual energy, Li Feihe leaped ahead of her and rescued her. Zhang Feihe suffered a heavy blow by taking a critical hit instead of Qiajin, and finally admitted he had mistakenly brought her down the mountain path and was unable to protect her and the other members anymore. Zhang Feihe had given up and was defeated by the crazed beast. Qiajin sobbed and screamed with a plea to save her and her master. On the other side, Li Yonki was analyzing the crazed beast's attack and power. He calculated that the beasts had resistance in their skins against his lightning attack, despite the difference in his and the beast's levels. As the beasts bombarded another series of attacks, Li Yonki became furious and activated his lightning skill, Lightning Torrent. Li Yonki succeeded in defeating the beasts due to their skin's vulnerability from the inner core. However, he did not realize he had misjudged the force of his attack, which had affected the whole village. The charge from the lightning skill harmed the innocent villagers around them. Meanwhile, on the other side of the tower, Zhao Hao marched excitedly while fantasizing about becoming the next dean of the academy as she gets stronger. No one could hold her back anymore, not even her previous group members. Suddenly, Xiao Hao encountered a group of Spirit Clan beasts. At first, she had trouble recognizing the members of the Spirit Clan beasts, and unexpectedly called them dogs instead. Zhao Hao abruptly gasped as Yuan appeared out of nowhere. She proclaimed her as a little princess, which made her a little angry. Yuan mocked the beasts as less intelligent beings than humans as they had come to attack her and her tower. As the chapter begins, it portrays Li Yonki's side of the battle. Li Yonki's single strike could cause huge implications by burning the whole surroundings in smithereens. Li Yonki took in the surrounding view with a deep gaze. Everyone rushed to save themselves. Li Feilei was advised to take Ah Bing back with him, while Bobo, too, needed saving. Although people were running for their lives, Li Yonki was reminiscing about a comedic line from his past. He shared his thought that making an offering of all the people to the heavens could help him gain immeasurable powers in exchange. But he reconsidered these thoughts and asked them to leave his presence, as he could kill them all in a fit of rage and anger. Suddenly, a villager boy confronted Li Yonki and distracted his thoughts by aiming a rock toward Li Yonki's head. He got hit by it, The boy blamed Li Yunqi and the others for showing up abruptly and had wrecked his village. The boy cried for his missing father furiously in the burning village. Simultaneously, on the other side of the tower, Xiao Hao and Yu Wan were facing off with the Spirit Clan beasts too. Xiao Hao's frustrations reached the sky as the beasts destroyed her soul eggs and made her feel vulnerable, whereas Yu Wan had no trouble taking the beasts' blows. Yu Wan was powerful enough to strike the fierce beasts with less than 3 blows, which made Xiao Hao furious. She underestimated Yu Wan's strengths. Yu Wan began questioning Xiao Hao's solo journey back to the academy. Xiao Hao wavered as she began to think twice about answering truthfully. Xiao Hao gave in by admitting Li Yunqi was too strong and had no need for her assistance in the team. Yu Wan was disappointed. She claimed that she would force Xiao Hao to join them again. Yu Wan considers Xiao Hao to be fun who's able to enliven the team's atmosphere. Yu Wan also revealed Li Yunqi's impending death. He had one foot in the grave, but still survived despite the horrors. She gave an example of the world as a huge metal rock, while the members of the spirit clans as rust. If the rust kept on corroding the metal, the rock would be destroyed. Henceforth, the world would be no more. Therefore, Li Yunqi's presence is a necessity for the world's safety from the members of the Spirit Clan. She explains that his family had protected the world against the Spirit Clan's evil doing for a long time. Similarly, Li Yunqi had to fight for the same cause. Xiao Hao needed clarification. She questioned her role in between since she proved worthless. But Yu Wan wants more people around Li Yunqi to weep for him as he recultivates, and by becoming the king, he wouldn't be corroded in the royal palace. Yu Wan states that Li Yunqi had bigger plans this time around. He harbored a bold vision of completely eradicating the Spirit Clan. Although the chances of succeeding are low, Li Yunqi is adamant about taking risks. This is why he needs companions to support him throughout this dire mission. Yu Wan concludes that she had done her part in convincing Xiao Hao as an important man essential. Now it is her choice and decision to turn back and become a support for the future king. At the village, everyone blamed them for being the cause of this chaos. Fei Lei tried to tell them that all they did was save them, but the people were not ready to listen. Li Yunqi told Li Fei Lei to step back as these people had lost much and needed to vent their anger. The people said all sorts of things to them, but they all just stood there and listened, when all of a sudden a loud voice was heard that told them to shut up. It was Xiao Hao who had decided to come back. She turned towards her fellows and taunted them for being insane and letting these people swear at them when clearly they were the powerful ones. She stood between them as a rock and challenged the villagers to say another word about her fellows.